Okay, mashallah. Let's get started, inshallah. Mashallah, mashallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulih al-Kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very, very warm welcome to everyone. Thank you very, very much for joining us, those on site, those online. Let's get started, inshallah. So, we have a lot of new faces, a lot of new names. Welcome to all of you, especially those who are with us for the first time for any of our programs. We're very, very happy to have you. And I think this time around, we have people from all over the world, especially those online. Whoever's here local, I assume you're local. Anyone drive a long distance to get here? Dr. Saab, okay. I guess that's the longest over here. How about online? Can you guys share where you're from? In the chat, or if you want to unmute. Let's see who's from the furthest away. Okay, Vancouver, UBC side, Chicago. Okay. You're the current winner. Kelowna, Philippines, mashallah. Okay, can anyone beat that? We did have someone register, I think, from Melbourne or Sydney. I think that's further than Philippines from here. I'm not too sure, to be honest. Okay, so Philippines is winning for now. We'll check in again later when more people have joined, inshallah. Isn't it like 3, 4 in the morning for you? I assume the time difference is like similar to Australia's. 3 a.m., mashallah. May Allah accept your dedication. Allahu Akbar. Okay, so we have a lot ahead of us, inshallah. Those who are online only, you would have received the course workbook in your email. That will help you follow along. Those who are registered for on-site, surprisingly, most of you opted for the digital version, which is good, mashallah. Those who opted for the printed version, when you registered, you can pick. You would have already picked that up when you signed in. If anyone changes their mind and they want the printed one afterwards, you can get one if we have extras. If people have arrived, those who asked for one, we have a few extras, and if you like, you could have those, because there will be some writing and stuff involved. And we will get you some papers to write on if you need, if you don't have the booklet, right? So one of the things that takes the most time in these workshops, I mean, this is our 4th one we've been doing now. We started during COVID. We had 2 online. This is our 2nd one on site, in person. And that's in questions. A lot of questions come up, and that's absolutely normal, especially when you first get exposure to different ideas of where zakat applies, where it doesn't, and then more things come in your mind. So inshallah, we'll do our best to address every question that we get. One thing that I ask though is, if I haven't covered a topic already, or I'm not talking about it at that time, please don't ask a question about that topic, because 95% of the time it's gonna come up later. Again, the questions we get the most about are about pension funds, and that will come. It's a bit later, towards like the second half. It will come. We're going to talk about all that. Pension funds and properties. We're going to talk about all that. It's going to come. If we've finished that discussion and you still have a question about that, then save it for the Q&A at the end. Okay, we're going to have a Q&A session at the end. The only questions I will take throughout is if it's about the active topic that I'm talking about, something comes to your mind at that time you want to ask, that you can ask, inshallah. For those online, you can put it in the chat, or you can put your hand up, I'll call on you and you can unmute yourself and speak that way, inshallah. I'm going to ask the online attendees to please keep me stay on top of me. I try to always repeat the questions that people ask on site, so the online people can know what the question is. If I don't, please call me out and let me know that I'm not doing it. I'll try to, so I remember to do that, inshallah. Because usually you can't hear it if someone asks the question from the floor here. All right. So our institute here is Al-Ihsan Educational Foundation. We're going to talk more about that towards the end, inshallah. Right now, let's get right into it. Our workshop today is estimated to last about 4 hours. Again, that depends strongly on the number of questions that we will get. It may stretch beyond that a bit. It may end a bit early. That's all on you guys. All right. And we have 4 main sessions, 4 main sections. Intro, which we'll try to keep brief. Who must pay zakat? That also not very long. The main part is, will these two go together? How to calculate zakat? What assets is zakat due on, and how to do those calculations? This will be the majority of the workshop. And then the last one is about where to give your zakat, where to disburse your zakat, where you can and where you cannot give your zakat. And we'll have Q&A after that. We do have lunch for the on-site attendees online. We'll send you pictures, inshallah. Or maybe we'll send some emojis in the chat of burgers and pizza. It's the best we could do at this point, unfortunately. Some of you are from Surrey who are online, so if you want to come down, most welcome. We'll have breaks, different intervals, inshallah. We'll see how it's going. For Dhuhr Salat on site, if we're ending early, then we'll pray at the end at like 2:30, 3 o'clock. Otherwise, we'll have to take a break a bit earlier. It's a bit tricky because we have a class going upstairs, our weekend class for children that runs from 10 to 2. So if we have to, we'll move them out of the musalla and we'll go pray there. But we'll try to make it work where we can go pray after they leave, so we don't disturb those classes, inshallah. Yeah, so also lunch will be here around 1:30ish, inshallah, and we'll take a break around that time, give you 15-20 minutes to eat, and we'll continue that, inshallah. Throughout the class, if you want to we have tea on both sides. Where's sugar? No. Okay. We have tea on both sides. We have water, and we'll have feel free to have that throughout the program, and then we'll break for lunch at that time, inshallah. Zakat. Zakat is one of the pillars of Islam. It is one of those things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has emphasized most in the Quran. There's no other commandment or injunction that comes in the Quran along with salat as many times as zakat does. There are many times, I forget how many, 20 or 30 something times, أقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة. أقيموا الصلاة وآتوا الزكاة. They always come hand in hand. And because zakat is not something done as frequently as salat is, people tend to think of it as not as important as salat, but it is right up there. It is a fard, a faridah, an obligation on every Muslim, every eligible Muslim person. Lexically, it has a few meanings: purity, increased truthfulness, Purity, because the whole concept of zakat is about purifying one's wealth. Any, we say filth, or any, it means basically any wealth that may have come into your possession through some means that it shouldn't have. And sometimes that happens without even knowing. Right? So it's a way just to make sure that our wealth is completely purified. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us the system. That's where the meaning of purity comes. Increase, well, that's a very long topic, but sadaqat and zakat, we have been guaranteed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that these are a means of increase in our wealth. And that is definitely the case. I have put out this challenge many times to people, that find me one person anywhere who says that I gave sadaqah, I gave zakat, and that put me into a difficult financial situation. Has that ever happened to anyone here? It's a guarantee from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rather, the opposite happens. Different means, different venues open up where you get wealth that you may not have gotten otherwise. You may not realize that I'm getting this because of what the sadaqah zakat that I gave, but that is actually the case. Okay? Which is why you see people who are most generous in giving, they're often very wealthy. And so people think they're generous because they're wealthy. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, you're generous, you're gonna get wealthy. Works the other way around. Islamic truthfulness, because zakat is something that it attests to the truthfulness of a person. Someone can easily give zakat, someone can easily not give zakat, I'll say that yes, I've given my zakat. And it's very difficult to prove that someone hasn't. There's so many venues and places where you can give zakat, give it online, give it in a masjid, give it here, give it there. So a person's iman and their truthfulness is what makes them actually give that zakat, pay that zakat. Islamically, the technical definition, basically, this is a very wordy one. Transfer of ownership of a certain amount of wealth prescribed by the law from a rich person to a poor person who is not a Hashimi and neither a slave of a Hashimi for the sake of Allah. Basically, it means taking a portion of your wealth and giving it to those in need, right? Based on the guidelines of Sharia. Here. Okay. Zakat was made obligatory in the second year after Hijrah. Some say it was during the month of Ramadan in the second year. Some say it was after it. That was when it was made fard. Before that, there was always sadaqah and charity, but it was never obligatory as zakat is. Okay, I want to say more about the history of it in that aspect. In Sharia, when you look at the collection of ahkam and injunctions that we have, they fall into different categories. There are some that have to do with a physical nature, and that has to do with your salat, for example. It's about physical movements, a physical act. You have those that have to do with financial aspects only. That is your zakat. Your zakat, sadaqah, inheritance, things like that. And then you have those that have to do with both, where you have physical and financial. That is like your hajj, right? And then your siyam would be physical as well, right? And then you have those based on beliefs, and that is your iman. In Sharia, the concept of zakat is very different from that of a tax. Okay. Mainly, the main differentiating factor is that zakat is an ibadah. It's an act of worship, right? Never it happens that you give taxes and you get a reward for that. Right? It doesn't work that way. taxes are just about taking from you, right? And then we'll get more into that. But zakat is something, it's a means, it's a favor that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to us. A way for us where someone may not even be in the habit of usually giving. It creates this generosity, this care for them. They're forced to think that I have something that other people don't have, and I have a chance to help them, right? And it should never ever be looked at as a burden, just like any other ibadat, right? And I was listening to one sheikh a few days ago, and he was talking about, not about this, but something else, and he was talking about changing our mindset in general from saying things like I have to do this to I get to do this, right? Oh, I have to get up and go to school. I have to get up and go to work. No, I get to get up and go to work. I get to get up and go to school. I have to pray salat. No, I get to pray salat. I have to pay zakat. I get to pay zakat. Right? It's a blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made us from those who give zakat, not those who receive zakat. Right? So our obligation is to never ever look at it in a way that it is a difficulty, it is a burden, it'll put us in hardship. That is never the case. That never has been the case, it never will be the case. When we look at Quran and Hadith, there's no shortage of texts about the virtue of zakat and sadaqat and the warnings for those who do not give zakat. You have some in front of you here. The sadaqah is never intermingled with any amount of wealth without destroying and rotting it. Right? And very briefly, touching upon the idea of what we call barakah, blessings in our wealth. What barakah actually means is to be able to do more with less. And when someone does not have that level of barakah in their wealth, they end up getting done less with more. Right? If you see a situation where you're just throwing money into something, trying to get it done, trying to get it to work, and it's just not happening. You're trying. That is a sign that something is wrong. And on the other hand, if you have a situation where you never really have to think about wealth, right? Maybe you have some sort of steady income coming in. It might not be that high, but you're living a comfortable, easy life, and you're able to get done everything you like and more. You're getting done things. You're going on vacation. You have the most high-tech devices. You have the best cars, and other people who are making way more than you don't have that. That's a sign that there is barakah in your wealth. Right? And there's a lot more about, there's a whole system of finances and how it impacts our finances in Islam and how that impacts our daily lives. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, those who recite the book of Allah and establish prayer and spend out of what we have provided them, secretly and publicly, can expect a profit that will never perish. Another verse says, that which you give in zakat seeking Allah's pleasure, then those they shall receive their wealth increased and multiplied. On the other hand, you have verses like, وَالَّذِينَ يَكْنِزُونَ الذَّهَبَ وَالْفِضَّةَ وَلَا يُنْفِقُونَها فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَبَشِّرْهُم بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ. Those who hoard gold and silver, meaning wealth, and don't spend it for the sake of Allah, then give them the glad tidings, give them the news of a painful punishment. What is that punishment? يَوْمَ يُحْمَى عَلَيْهَا فِي نَارِ جَهَنَّمَ. Those same golds and silvers will be heated in the fire of Jahannam. فَتُكْوَى بِهَا جِبَاهُهُمْ وَجُنُوبُهُمْ وَظُهُورُهُم. And their foreheads, their sides, their backs will be branded with those pieces. And it'll be said to them, هَذَا مَا كَنَزْتُمْ لِأَنفُسِكُمْ فَذُوقُوا مَا كُنْتُمْ تَكْنِزُونَ. This is what you used to hoard for yourself and save. Now taste the outcome of that which you used to do. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us all from that. Moving on, zakat. Zakat is fard on every baligh Muslim, every sane baligh Muslim. And when we say it's fard on, there are two levels of zakat being due on someone. Okay, one is does the overall criteria, do you fulfill the overall criteria for the first level of obligation? Are you someone that might have to pay zakat at some time in your life? You can think of it that way, right? Or does the commandment just not apply to you at all in any circumstance? The second level we're going to talk about is about having enough wealth, right? Which makes you eligible to pay zakat. But the first level, if you don't have that first level, like someone is a child, we're going to talk about the different opinion there. Let's say someone is not sane. Okay, they have a mental condition, and no matter how much wealth they have, they will never have to pay zakat on that. The obligation doesn't apply to them even to begin with. They're not what we call mukallaf. They're not liable at any level. Once someone fulfills this criteria first, then you will move on to the second one to see if they have enough wealth on which zakat would be due. There's a difference of opinion here. Imam Abu Hanifa is the only one who says that zakat is not due on a child's wealth. Okay, the other schools say that it is due if a child has enough wealth. The Hanafi school also strongly encourages that if the children have wealth, the parents should pay it on their behalf. Okay, so practically there isn't much difference. But if someone is in a situation where they absolutely can't, then in the Hanafi school, the children's wealth zakat does not have to be paid on that. Okay, so like I said, the first two sections would be quick. We're into the third one now, the main one. Calculating zakat. There are 12 different items here. We're going to go through even more. But this is just to give you an idea of what things you need to know to make sure your zakat calculations are being done in the correct manner. Okay? And the reason why it's so important to know this is because, something like salat, if you make a mistake in your salat could still be valid, right? If it's not a major mistake. Same thing in like recitation of Quran. If you read something somewhat wrong, if it's not a major mistake, it won't like nullify your salat. You won't get a major sin for it. However, in zakat, if you make a mistake or you calculate, you under-calculate how much zakat you have to give, then it doesn't get made up for, right? You can't say, okay, he did some of his zakat, right? Or she did some of his zakat. And similarly, even more so, if there's a type of asset that someone may not even know that zakat is due on that, right? So they haven't been paying zakat on that at all. It could have been for years, decades, who knows? Right, so we'll go through these, inshallah, one by one. And like I said, we'll take questions about the active topics throughout, inshallah. Zakat is paid once a year. Zakat is paid once a year. There is an idea, a concept, which we call the nisab, which is a very important concept in zakat. Nisab is the threshold of zakat that a person must have in order for zakat to be due on them. Okay, and we'll talk about what that is. The way you find out when to pay zakat, if you have to pay zakat, is if you need to see when did you first have nisab. Okay, for argument's sake, I'm going to say nisab is $500. We'll talk about what it exactly is up ahead. Yes. Yeah, so the question is that if someone has just accepted Islam, do you have to tell them that they have to pay zakat? Yes. There's a hadith. Yeah, we're gonna talk about it at the end, but there's a hadith of when Nabi Sallallahu sent Mu'adh to Yemen. He gave him instructions on what to teach the people. That's the first thing he said, that invite them to Islam. That's the first thing. He said if they accept, then tell them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made 5 salawat fard on them every day, and tell them that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made zakat fard on them, which is taken from the rich of them and given to the poor of them. So that was the first instruction that he gave, that anyone who accepts Islam, you tell them this right away. So it would be important to tell them that as well. Right? So you look in your life, right? When was the first time you had nisab? In savings. In savings. Okay. Zakat is never due on someone who doesn't have savings. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, you won't be paying zakat. When you have savings for the first time, like I said, we're going to take 500 as a sample, as an example. When you had that, your zakat year has started. Okay. The first end of your zakat year has started. You're going to take, let's say that date was January 1st. Okay, to keep it simple. Actually, Muharram 1st. Zakat all works off of the lunar year. Okay. So let's say it was the 1st of Muharram. You're going to see now next 1st of Muharram. Do you still have nisab? Do you have $500 or more? Whatever you have on that day, on the next Muharram 1st, you're going to pay zakat on that. Okay, how much to pay, how to pay, we're going to talk about all of that. That's the idea of nisab and the year of zakat. You have to have nisab at both ends, right? And that date, when you first got nisab, that is your zakat date. That is the date when zakat is fard on you. That is the date when you calculate your zakat. Right? So if you see, that is the date when you would check exactly how much you have in your bank, how much you have in this and that, and you would use the numbers from that day for your calculations. Now, if you don't know when you first had nisab, right? Someone, it could have been 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's fine. Most people don't know. Most people when they first get nisab, they're too young to know that I need to take note of this date, right? Or what nisab even is. So you pick a day. Pick a day, any day of the year, and you make that your zakat date. Because ultimately zakat is due once a year. Right? So you pick a date and you stick to that to the rest of your life. So if you haven't picked a date yet, pick a date. Most people pick a date in Ramadan. You don't have to. Okay, most people do. It's better to do that because the reward for giving zakat is so much more in Ramadan. Right? Everything is multiplied and so on. Some people choose one of the odd nights in the last 10 days. Some people just do the first of Ramadan. It's up to you. You can choose any. You can choose, I don't know, the 14th of Dhul Qa'dah. It's up to you. Just choose a date and stick to that, and that is the date when you will do calculations. I have a question. What is the threshold for nisab? We're going to talk about that next, inshallah. Right. Now, okay, let me say something else first. I haven't said this in any of our previous workshops, but I think this year is more relevant than ever before. But there is another opinion, okay, about where you don't use nisab. You don't use nisab. Instead, you look at your living situation. Okay, that's called kifaya. It's called kifaya. Do you have enough to get by? And do you have a comfortable amount of savings? The reason why we usually don't use that opinion is because it gets tricky in defining what is that cushion. How much should we say that you have to have in savings? But nowadays, especially with inflation and the increased cost of living all over the place, nisab is around $500. I use that, I said as an example, but it is around there. It's based off of the price of silver. There's two opinions. We're going to see it 595 grams or 612 grams. Nowadays, 1 gram of silver, last I checked a few days ago, it was like 90 something cents. So it comes around $500-600, right? In today's world, especially here, by no means is someone who has $500 of savings wealthy. Right? They might even be considered poor. All you have is $500, $600. So it seems like it's getting a lot more appropriate to use the concept of kifaya, but it's not for everyone to do on their own. You would need to you would need to consult with someone one-on-one, and your situation will need to be assessed and see, do you really qualify from that regard, right? So, and then there's different ways to do it. I don't want to confuse you guys too much, but in some cases you look at, does this person have enough savings? This is one way to use kifaya. Do I have enough savings to get through my next 3 months of expenses? And if I lost my job right now and I have no income for the next 3 months, do I have enough to get by for the next 3 months? Some say 2 months, some say 1 month, some say 6 months. So it gets a little tricky, right? So from that aspect, let's say someone's monthly expense here in BC, to say it'd be like $4,000. I think that's about maybe average, maybe even under average, $3,000 to $4,000. So that would mean that, do you have $9,000 in savings? Right? If you have that much, then you pay zakat. If not, you don't. That's, like I said, that's the other way to do it. There's another way as well to use the nisab. The numbers I told you of 595 grams and 612 grams, that's based off of the nisab of silver. There's also the nisab of gold, which is around $5,000-6,000. Right? So that is also a viable option to use. That if you have less than that, then you don't pay zakat. If you have more, then you give zakat. But see, the issue that comes, and another reason why we usually stick with this nisab, the issue that comes is, if you use kifaya, in the example that I gave you, of this person would need $9,000 for 3 months of expenses. So by that definition, if they only have 8,000, right, they don't pay zakat. Instead, they're eligible for zakat. Right? Because you're either one or two, either you pay zakat or you could take zakat. Same way with the gold nisab, if someone has like $4,000, they're below the nisab, so they're not going to pay zakat, but they could take zakat. And it just doesn't seem right for someone who has $4,000 or $8,000 in savings to be taking zakat. Right? That's where the biggest issue comes in. So we usually stick to this nisab. Someone has dire situation, dire circumstance, they can speak to a scholar, get their situation assessed, and see what would be best for them. That is if someone is living on that fence. You don't know what side you fall into. In most cases, someone will know, either I'm poor, I have no money, or I have enough, and for sure I'm gonna have to pay zakat. Right? So when someone is on that fence, then it would be best to consult with someone and see what is your best course of action. All right. For the sake of this discussion, we're going to stick to the nisab of silver. When we look at both ends of the zakat year, as long as you have nisab at both ends, the beginning and the end. I mean, the beginning and the end only matters when you first start, right? Then it's just about looking at that date every year when that date comes. As long as you have above nisab, you will pay zakat. Okay, on what you have on that day. This image that I made many years ago. I didn't realize until I saw it now. That time the nisab was $400. Now it's higher. It's like $500-600. Let's go with 600 for today's discussion. So just pretend that line is at 6. Okay, 600, the red line. So as long as you have nisab at the beginning and the end of the year, you will pay zakat, even if you dip below nisab during the year. Okay, even if you dip below nisab during the year. So in this case, this person started off with 800, they went up, down, and then here around Jumada Thani, no, here around Rabiul Akhir, they went below nisab. They went down to $200 only in savings, and then they came back up and they ended the year on top. So this person will pay zakat. The only exception to this is if you lose all of your money, you go into debt. Okay, so like in this case, person again started at 800, up, down, and they went into the negative. Once you go into the negative, your zakat year is canceled. Okay, it's gonna start again now once you reach nisab again. So in this case, when this person went below 0, everything below it no longer matters. Before it no longer matters. He went down, and now over here, looks like the middle of Rajab, this person gained nisab again. This is when their new zakat year starts now. Right? So even as an adult, right, this doesn't have to apply to someone who's just starting to pay zakat the first time as like a teenager or something. Even as an adult, or if you're older, if you're living in debt, right, we'll talk about what debts qualify, what don't. If you're living in a debt that removes you from the obligation of zakat, when you get out of that debt and you have savings again, that's when you're going to start your zakat year again. Okay? And now as an adult, as being aware, you could actually track that date and you'll know exactly what date your zakat is. So it's best if you could figure out your date and work off of that. You could even do your calculations based off of that date, but disperse your zakat in Ramadan. That's also okay. We'll talk about that more later on. Okay, any questions about this? Yes.
So like if you're saving up for something, let's say Hajj, that you're gonna be using like like 2 or 3 years from now, you still have to be people saving.
Yeah, he asked if you're saving up for something, do you have to pay zakat on that amount? Yes. Right, whether it's for a Hajj, whether it's for a down payment of a house, some other major expense. If you have that money just sitting there and your zakat date comes, you're gonna pay zakat on that. And remember, it's about what amount of money you have on that date, your zakat date. Even if you got, let's say you spent the whole year and you only had like 3,000 in savings, and the day before your zakat date comes, you got like $300,000 somewhere. Zakat's gonna be due on that. Okay. Same way, the opposite way. If you had a large amount and the day before you lose it, or you spent it, zakat won't be due on it now the next day. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, for online students, some more have joined in. We had a little competition at the beginning. Is anyone here from further than the Philippines? That's our current winner. Someone did register from Zambia and a few from Australia, but I don't know if they're able to join. Massive time difference. Okay, you're still winning, Philippines. Yes.
So in terms of like your savings, does it matter how you earn or lose money?
Does it matter how you earn or lose the money? No, no. But one thing that you shouldn't do is, if you and your brother have different zakat dates, okay, I'm gonna give you all my money one day before my zakat date, and you give it back to me a day after mine, and you give me yours before your just. It shouldn't be in a way you're doing to what we call a hila, a way around giving the zakat, right? As long as it's nothing like that. Some scholars even say that if you do that, it won't work. You still have to pay zakat if you did it with that intention. Okay. Nisab. Nisab of gold is 87.48 grams. Nisab of silver is 612.36 grams. or 595.35. There's two ways that scholars have calculated it. 595 is the more cautious one. We could use either or, it's fine. If you only own gold, you have no other assets. And don't just think about cash. There's a lot of other types of assets you could have. If you only have gold, you don't own anything else, you will use the nisab of gold. Okay, do you have more than 87.48 grams? If you have mixed assets, you have cash and you have gold. You have cash and silver and gold. You have gold and you have investments. You have gold and you have a business, different things. If it's mixed, then you go to the nisab of silver. And I've already told you about the whole idea behind nisab. Zakat on jewelry. I don't know if you have a separate thing about jewelry. No, we don't. So in jewelry, according to the Hanafi opinion, if jewelry is being worn, is being used, zakat is still due on it. Okay. Imam Shafi'i, some of the other scholars say that no, if it's being worn, then it's something you use, then zakat is not due on it. However, what I have seen is that most scholars today, and most major charities and zakat organizations, they say that zakat should still be paid on jewelry. Okay, so that's the opinion that we take. Because gold and silver is something that has an intrinsic monetary value. Even if you're using it itself, it's like if you had, a large coin of something and you shaped it into some jewelry and you wore it. It itself, it's still money, right? It's still something that's used as money.
How does gold silver ratio works now? Like the current market price, it's about 90 today. So how this ratio works out here?
What do you mean by the ratio?
About 90 gold silver ratio in terms of pricing historically we look at that kind of ratio.
Okay.
So how does this ratio work?
The nisab, the ratio of the nisab of gold and silver is not based off of the current day markets.
Sorry?
The nisabs of silver and gold, they're not based off of current day markets or ratios. They're taken from hadith, where in hadith it says that in every 200 dirhams, zakat is due. Right? At 200 dirhams of silver, dirham is a silver coin, that comes out to the 612 grams. And same thing for gold. So it's based off of the hadith. So the ratio and that thing, it doesn't play a part here. Doesn't matter what the ratio is. No, that won't make a difference in this case. But we just stick with the numbers that have been given in hadith. Yes.
So anything below the number, you still have to pay the zakat?
No, so if you're below nisab, you don't have to pay zakat.
So what about like the common one is like, let's say like engagement things like happening. $20,000 engagement, like now you got like diamonds, like well, everything is in there, right?
Yeah.
Do you calculate the cost of that too?
So zakat is not due on stones. Right? The zakat is not due. So if let's say a ring, example you gave, right? Let's say the stone in there was worth like, I don't know, let's say 15,000, and the ring itself was worth like 5,000, like the band. You just look at the value of the band, or the weight of the band, the amount of gold or silver that's in there. And if that amount happens to go above the nisab, then you'll pay zakat. If it's under, then you won't.
So what about like the watch, that's $15,000 watch, and in nothing like silver, gold.
Yeah, because so like a $50,000 watch, that goes into a different discussion about if someone is living a very lavish lifestyle, right? They have the most expensive of everything. Do those things fall into their zakat calculations, right? Do they pay zakat on that stuff? Or like if someone has very, very expensive things and then they don't have savings, does that mean they could receive zakat? Because those things, they're things that they use, right? Like the watch example you gave, so something that a person uses. So for the purely technical aspect, zakat, they could receive zakat, right? But from the ethical aspect, they should not be taking zakat. If someone is in that situation, they if they actually care about it, they should liquidate some of their assets, and that'll put them above the threshold, and they should be paying zakat. Right? Because if they had, I mean, if someone is doing that, who they have things that expensive, and they are then avoiding paying zakat and instead trying to take it, you know that this person doesn't take the zakat seriously, right? So it would be a different types of people. Someone who does care about it and knows what needs to be done, they won't play around with it that way, right? But essentially anything that a person is using besides gold and silver, it won't be counted in one's savings amounts. Right? Does that answer your question? Okay, so if you have gold and silver, so if you have gold and it's mixed with other alloys, right? So looking at the carats, 24 carats is 100% pure, and if it's less than that, then based on how many carats it is, that's the percentage of purity that it has, right? So if you only have jewelry that is below 12 carats, okay, so 10 carat and under, that means the other metal that is in there is dominant in that piece of jewelry, so zakat won't be due on that. It has to be 50% or more. Okay. But in that case, what scholars say is that if you have just one item like that, then you don't pay zakat on that for sure. If you have many of them, let's say someone owns like 20 rings and necklaces and bracelets and this and that, and they're all 10 carats. Okay, so you should just gather the value of them together and pay zakat on it. Right? Okay, cash liquid assets, like we said, we mainly use the nisab of silver, but if you're in that situation where you're on the fence, then speak to someone. I also work with National Zakat Foundation of Canada. They have a system where you could set up one-on-one consultations with myself or some of the other scholars. So that is a system that and that's offered in partnership with Al-Ihsan. So if someone needs to use that, you could, and it's free. It's a free service. You set up a half-hour window, and you could present your situation and get your questions answered. So someone needs that, you could avail of that, inshallah. If you own mixed assets, like we said, gather the value of all of them and pay 2.5% on those. Okay. Now, when it comes to evaluating things, especially jewelry, there are two ways of doing it. One is you go to a jeweler and you ask them how much they would buy it for, right? And they're going to tell you their rate, which is less than the market rate, because they're going to keep their margin in there, right? So some scholars say that you could use that rate, because essentially that is what cash you could get at that time were you to sell it, right? But others say that the same thing, that gold and silver, it has an intrinsic monetary value. So you're not looking at selling it or not. It is something itself that the zakat is due on. So it should be given on the full value of it. And the different ways you can do that, you can do it by weight, in a way on any scale sensitive enough, and knowing how many carats it is, right? Let's say you have 18 carat ring or something. Weigh the ring, see how much that total weight is. Let's say it weighs, I don't know, 15 grams, right? 20 grams. You take 18 out of 24, which is 75%, right? Because it's 18 carat ring. However much that ring weighs, you said 15 grams. See what the price of, if it's a gold ring, what the price of gold would be for 15 grams of gold, take 75% of that, and then pay 2.5% on that. Okay, does that make sense? You have a ring, which is essentially 75% pure. Find out how much that ring would be worth if it was 100% pure, based on the weight and the current price of gold. And then take 75% of that and pay 2.5% on that as your zakat. Okay. Practice problem. Okay, in your workbooks or in your PDFs, on your tablets, whatever you're using, papers. I think we have some papers in the back. You guys check in the cupboard. We have some extra papers if someone needs. And there's pens in the back too. Simple problem. This could be a very common situation for someone who doesn't have, other assets, investments, properties, and so on. You have some money at home, you have some money in the bank, you have some gold and some silver. How much zakat do you owe? What do you pay zakat on from these things? Is there anything you don't pay zakat on? And how much do you owe? Try to do the calculation, take a few minutes, and those online, put in your answer in the chat, and those on site, just make note of it, and we'll look at the answer. So. Okay. Anyone get it? What is the answer? $12.50. Okay. What do you say? $148 and 75. Same. Same. Okay. Online as well as the 148.75. See. Yeah, 148.75. This is zakat is due on all of it. You add it up, and that's your total, and you take 2.5% of that. And that is how much zakat you give. All right. Any questions about that? Yeah.
Like, is there, I thought there's a threshold of gold and silver that you
No, if you have mixed assets, as soon as you have mixed assets, you go to the nisab of silver. Gold is used if you only have gold. And if it's mixed, then the nisab of gold is not looked at. You use the nisab of silver. As a collective thing, you gather the value of all your assets, and then if it's above the nisab of silver, which is most likely will be, then you pay the zakat on that. Okay. So we talked about the basic types of wealth, cash, essentially, and jewelry. Before we get into different, more complicated types, let's talk about debts and loans. Okay. So these are basically your deductibles. Just like in a business, when you try to, make more expenses to use as deductibles for your taxes. Similar idea. But here, not trying to cheat anyone, you're allowed to do this. Okay. So any debts that you are going to pay that are due in the next 12 months, lunar months. Okay. You borrowed money from a friend, you owe him back $2,000. You're going to pay that to him maybe in 6 months from now. When you do your zakat calculations, let's say your total assets equaled 10,000. You won't calculate 2.5% on 10,000. You will calculate it on 8,000. Subtract 2,000 from that. Okay. Anything you're gonna pay back in the next 12 months. If it's a long-term loan you're paying off, like a mortgage, a car payment, student loan, something, you can deduct the next 12 months worth of capital payments. Okay, if interest is involved, we're not going to get into that right now, but if it is involved, zakat is not due or payable through haram wealth. So if you have wealth that came through interest, you don't pay zakat on that, and you can't use it as a deductible either. Zakat doesn't apply to it in any sense. For the next 12 months of capital payments you're going to be making, you can deduct that, right? Don't go deducting your whole mortgage. Otherwise, you're probably never going to pay zakat in your life. 12 months of capital payments, and then anything overdue, any expense that happened before your zakat date. This is very important. Any expense that happened before your zakat date and you owe it. Okay, you have a parking ticket. You have a bill you haven't paid. You have something that you owe, you haven't paid. It was due before. You can deduct that. You cannot deduct, I think that's the next slide. You cannot deduct future expenses. Okay. I got a call just, I think yesterday, the day before. Someone said that I have like $200,000-$300,000 saved up, and I'm going to use it as a down payment for my house in 3 weeks. But my zakat date came. It doesn't matter, right? It's a future expense. You haven't made that expense yet, right? Same thing with rent payments that are coming up in the future months. You can't deduct those. These are future payments, right? What you could deduct, I'll get you in a second, is I don't think it's here in the slides. Your current month expenses. Your current month expenses, even if you haven't paid them yet, or they haven't become due on you yet, right? Like for example, hydro bill, right, or electricity bill, a gas bill. Let's say it comes to you on the 15th of every month, right? And that month your zakat date is on the 12th or something. It's gonna come that month. So anything like that you could deduct. One month of living expenses you could deduct. Your rent, your phone bill, your car bill, your any bills, anything like that. Yeah. So that current month and anything before. Anything before, the reason why I signed it separately is because it's more vast. It could be any expense. Even if it's not a living expense, I could give an example of a parking ticket, that too you can deduct. Right. Yes, your question, Rashid?
No, like, see, next semester, you have to take this class.
Yeah.
Fine.
No, if you know you're gonna take a class next term, no. Still can't. Right. The only Yeah, no, that wouldn't apply. There is one situation where something like that you could use, and that is the case where you bought something and you're paying for it in installments. Right? So how Sharia views that transaction is you bought something, right? Let's say I bought a laptop for like $5,000. Okay, one day, inshallah. I'm paying for it over 3 years. The second I bought the laptop, I owe that 5,000 now. I'm just paying for it over time, right? So in that sense, also, it would be best to just deduct the next 12 months, right? But something like a course that you're gonna take, your tuition isn't due in full as soon as you register in university. And it becomes due with every course that you take, so that you can apply that there. Different.
This 12 months term, how would it sit? Like the Quran I've seen in 6:141, it says that you pay at the time of harvest. So it sounds like the more income tax then. But what this 12 months gives more of a wealth tax then.
The whole thing of harvest zakat, there's a whole system of zakat on agriculture and on livestock. Okay, it's very different from all of this that we're looking at, and we're not going to go into that unless someone is a farmer or something. You can see me afterwards. I can try to help you. But this system of 12 months, brother, it's based off of the fact that from the purely technical aspect, you would deduct the full loan amount. Okay, technically speaking, that is what you owe at that time. Let's say it's a mortgage, you owe $400,000 on it. That is what you owe, so technically you should be deducting that. But the issue that arises is if you do that, like I said, you're never going to pay zakat, even if you're wealthy. Right? So this is something that has been agreed upon by all the scholars, that what is a good threshold to use. Some say you do just 1 month. That's the most strict view. That 1 month, the next 1 month of your loan payment, you can deduct, nothing else. Okay. I have heard that there are people who say you can deduct the full amount. I haven't seen anyone myself say that. Everyone that I've ever seen anywhere always goes with the 12-month opinion, that is the amount that you can deduct.
So are you saying that there is a zakat on immovable property?
Zakat on immovable property. There could be. We're going to talk about properties up ahead, inshallah.
But what is the position of Sharia? There is no zakat on immovable property, it's only on goods of trade.
We'll talk about it when we get there, inshallah.
Covering that?
Yeah, inshallah. Okay. Question here, I live in a condo and they have told us we have a 3.5K levy fee. Yeah, me too. Coming up in August. I would still have to calculate that, even though they won't cash the check until then. You have a levy fee coming up in August. Yeah, if you haven't paid it yet, then you're gonna include it in the calculation. Unless they have set a date where this is the date when it's due, and now you're paying it after it's owed, then you could deduct it. Otherwise, you would pay the zakat on it. Right. If you've given the check and they haven't cashed it yet, the money is still in your possession. So you could tell them to cash it sooner if they could. All right. And like we said, unlawful income. Someone has unlawful income. Zakat is not due on that, nor is it payable with it in any sense. Loans. How do loans play in? So loans have been classified of two types: weak loans and strong loans. Okay, the terminology is just to help you make sense of it. You can call it whatever you want. A weak debt receivable is when you are waiting to receive one of a few things: wages, rental income, dowry, or inheritance. In essence, this is wealth that is owed to you. It's going to come to you, but not because of some money that you gave as a loan. Okay, so money is going to come to you, but not because you gave someone a loan first, now it's owed back to you. No. It's money coming to you from somewhere else for one of these reasons. It could be another reason too. We're going to see some more when we talk about businesses. zakat will not be due on that. Okay, it's money that you're entitled to, but you never received it. It's not in your ownership, never has been. Okay, no zakat on that. Strong debt is the opposite, where you gave money and now you're waiting to receive it back. Zakat is due on that. The only thing is you have an option. You can pay it year by year. Let's say if it's a long-term loan, you're going to get back in a few years. You could pay it every year. Or if you don't have the money to pay it because you've given that loan, okay, you could wait until you get the loan back and then backdate and pay all the years. Okay, so let's say you gave someone a loan of $5,000 and you don't have more savings now. So you have no way to pay zakat that's due on that 5,000. So you could wait until you get the loan back. Let's say you get it back after 3-4 years. And then backdate each year how much zakat you would have paid if you had that money, and you will owe that zakat. Yes.
If someone gets the loan, 5, 10, whatever, doesn't matter. He said, okay, I will return next year, but unfortunately, next year never comes. Then where do you stand?
Yeah. So the case where someone is not paying you back, right? That it's better to defer it. Wait and see if they ever do. If they do, then you backdate and pay the zakat. If they never give it back, then you're never gonna
But the
owe
money
the.
gone from your pocket, your bank, from everything, you are no ownership of that one. You already paid as a loan, but he is every year he is saying, well, I will pay next year.
Yeah, no, so something don't pay zakat on it.
At this position.
That-
Money is not your, the money cannot come back. Then.
Money is still yours. When you give a
The
loan,
intention of the person who paid for you, and in the first year you judge that he will never give you. Yeah, it is common, very common.
yeah, that's why I said don't pay zakat on it.
Yes.
That's what I said.
So many people.
I said wait.
How long?
If you ever do your whole life, if you ever do get it back,
Yes.
then backdate and pay zakat.
Back they hold 10 years.
Yeah.
15 years.
Yeah,
20 years.
if you don't never get it back, you don't pay zakat on it. Okay. It's down here. If there's no realistic chance of getting your money back, don't add the value. If you do get it back, then backdate it and pay the zakat, inshallah. Okay, and we'll share all these slides with you, inshallah. You guys will have these. Okay, another practice problem, a little bit more complicated. You have cash at the bank, at home, gold, silver, monthly car finance. We're going to assume this is 0% finance. Okay, this is all capital. Loan given to the masjid that you want to pay zakat on now. You're not going to defer it. And a loan that you owe to your friend that you're going to pay back in the next 12 months. Let's say next week. How much zakat do you pay? Okay, first answer is it 676. Give you guys a bit more time. Okay, another answer, 357.5. I don't remember the answers. I don't know who. Until we go next, I don't remember who's right or wrong either. $390. Okay. 232. Okay. We have another 357.5. Okay. Okay, that's three on that. 280. 480. Okay. Anyone else before we move ahead? Anyone, sisters? 275. We're doing 12 months. We're doing 12. 275. Okay, let's see. 275. Okay, unless I made a mistake. So you're gonna add. Remember, in zakat, you always add all your assets first, and then take out your deductibles, and then pay zakat on what's left. Right? So we're adding the cash, the gold, the silver, and we're adding the loan that we gave. We said we want to pay zakat on it now. You add that together, you get 15,600. Next, what are our deductibles? The car finance of 12 months, that's 3,600, plus the 1,000 that you're gonna pay back, 4,600. You're left with 11,000, and you pay 2.5% on that, which is 275. All right, and it's important for those who are getting it wrong. It's okay, but it's important that you see what you did wrong. Yes, you could defer the loan. Yeah, if you want, you could defer it.
We're adding the mustard too.
Yeah, we're adding it.
Is that a donation or is it a loan?
It's a loan in this case.
So you're gonna get it back.
Yeah.
So you pay zakat on that. When you get it back, you don't pay zakat.
Yeah, so it's up to you. You could pay it even before you got it back, or you could wait till when you get it back and then backdate it and pay it for each year.
Yeah, because I didn't add that one. there.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So for those of you who didn't add do that one.
So like adding loan and the mustard, I didn't add that.
Okay, so that would be 13,600 minus 4,600 times 0.025, 225. 13,600 minus 4,600, 225. Yeah. Because if you defer the loan, then you're gonna be paying 225. Yes. Yeah, so if you give it a loan and it's unsure if they're gonna pay back or when they're gonna pay back. If and when. Yeah, so it's better to wait then. Don't pay it until you get it back. If you get it back, then backdate it and pay it then, inshallah.
You
Yes.
know that you're not going to get it back, so is it,
Then don't pay it. Don't pay it.
how it comes to the list and everything?
No, it's not. It's not a deductible. If you don't if you don't have any realistic chance of getting it back, then just pretend it doesn't exist. It's gone. Right? Yes.
So question about the deduction there. So why are we deducting that loan with rent?
Because we said you're gonna pay it back within the next 12 months. So any loan owed, right? It's a difference. Loan owed and loan given.
Okay, I didn't-
Yeah, no worries.
yeah.
This is something that your friend gave you $1,000. You owe it back to him now. Another one. Okay. Very similar, but you have lost cash in here. What do you do with that? And you have loan again for the loan. We're gonna say we want to pay it now. Okay, so include it in the calculation. Or not. I don't know. What are you supposed to do? Okay, and the mortgage, we're gonna assume this is the capital amount of the monthly payment.
In this scenario, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, only one item, like monthly car finance as you said, for 25 by 300, 3600. So only 3600 deducting 16,000 the total. But
And the last one?
yeah, the total, if you are saying that you owe 1,000, you given must be 2,000. Keep it separate, these two items, because you will get back.
I think the $1,000 for the friend as well.
The $1,000 also deductible.
Yeah, yeah. 1, 2, 3 items, 2 items are deductible.
Yeah, 2 are deductible.
Yeah, and the rest is, the third is monthly car finance, as you said, you can deduct.
No, that is the second. There's the loan owed and the monthly car finance. These are the only two deductibles.
The monthly car is okay, 30.
Times 12, 36,
Yeah,
and 1,000,
and 1,000. And what
46.
How much is?
That's your money that you gave to them.
Yeah.
They owe you.
Yes, now.
Yeah, Qarz Hasana.
Yeah.
They owe you.
Yeah,
So you pay zakat on it.
every year. as
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. Or you could defer it until after.
Okay. This is.
Okay, we'll look at the answer for this and then we'll take a break, inshallah.
Translate the word money. English, Arabic word money,
Ghanim,
money.
Ghanim could be someone who has received the spoils of war.
So in that effect, is it literally?
Ghanim can also mean someone who receives something. Someone who receives something, who benefits from something. Yeah, yeah, it could be.
Because I was looking at this ayah, 841, using the word money. There it is, almost 841. Quran 5. Uses the word money there.
Okay.
It says hummus.
Yeah, khums is that's all about agriculture and khums and all that stuff. That's about ghanima. That's the whole. That's not about zakat. That's about spoils of war. War booty.
But money means benefit.
It has many meanings.
Just like say Male Ganiba.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Male Ganiba,
The word
yeah.
Male Ganiba. When you capture somewhere, then you will get that Male Ganiba.
Okay, we have 3 answers that came in so far. They all said
24.
624. Okay, we hear all 3 that came in said 427.5. 1447.5. Okay. 1472.5. Okay. You lost it. It's gone. It's gone. Remember, what did I say about wealth that you don't have a realistic chance of getting back? Deduct? Pay later if you get it back. Okay, 962.5. Okay, let's see. 452.5. So what's happening here? We added up the cash, gold, silver as usual. That's easy. We added the loan. We said we want to pay it now. Right? That gave us 38.5. What did we deduct? 12 times 1,700. And that's it. The lost cash is lost. Pretend it doesn't exist. If you get it back at some time, then you'll pay zakat on it. If you find it. Okay. And if it's just lost, like, I'm not sure which pocket it's in, but you're gonna find it, then pay zakat on it, right? If it's actually lost, you don't know where it went, you don't think it's ever gonna show up again, and then you find it after 30 years under your sofa, then backdate and pay zakat for 30 years. Sorry? Well, same thing. Yeah, if it's lost jewelry and you don't think you're gonna find it, pretend it doesn't exist, you don't pay zakat on it. But it's not deductible. Okay, don't make that mistake. Whether it's a loan that the guy has disappeared, or it's something you've lost, any assets that you don't have a realistic chance of getting back, don't pay zakat on it. And if you want to, you could. There's nothing wrong with it. And the thing in zakat is you always, whenever you're unsure of something, and the between the two unsureties, in one way you're gonna pay less wealth, other way you're gonna pay more. Always pay the one that's more. Okay, I mean, if it was the very big difference, then ask someone, okay, and see what's the right one. But okay, maybe my zakat is $400, maybe it's 420, something like that. Pay the one that's more. If it happens to be extra, it'll count as sadaqah, nothing wrong with it. But if you choose the less one and it actually was 420, then that amount is missing from your zakat. It always takes the side of precaution. We have one question here. We'll take that, then we'll take a break. Quick question of loan deferral, loan owed by someone to you. Okay. What would be the calculation of zakat if you receive the loan back in 10 years? 2.5% for each year multiplied by 10 equals 25%. No. So you're going to calculate it each year, removing 2.5%. Right. So let's say if it was 1,000, that means 2.5% is $25. Right? Yeah. So the first, now you're backdating, let's say for 3 years, right? I'll get you in a second. So for the first year, you're gonna pay $25. Next year, you're gonna calculate 2.5% of 975, whatever that is. For the third year, you're gonna calculate 2.5% of 950, or no, whatever you deducted. Right? It'll be like 20 something, between 20 and 25. Right? So it's not just because you're paying zakat, you're treating it as though you had that wealth throughout, and you paid zakat every year. So when you paid zakat, that amount of wealth went into zakat. So you would pay it for every year as though it stayed there. Okay. Yes.
We talked about who should pay zakat. Could you also touch upon who is eligible to receive zakat?
That's our last module. We're gonna talk about that in great detail. Okay, let's take a break. Take about like 8 minutes. We'll start again at 12:45. Stretch your legs, get some tea, get some water, and we'll continue after that, inshallah.
Just getting confused over the go to the masjid, you can deduct it now or you can deduct it later.
Don't deduct. You can pay zakat on it. Yeah, it's up to you, now or later. Okay, let's continue, inshallah. Online students, I've sent you an emoji of a cup of tea. Enjoy that, inshallah. Hopefully you have some tea in front of your coffee, keeping you awake. Okay. Zakat in a business. If you want a business where you sell things, you have merchandise, you have a shop, you have something, zakat is due on certain things. What is it due on? Well, firstly, the cash. The cash that your business has. Again, assuming it's above nisab, which it almost always will be. And you will calculate that as a part of your assets, business assets. Cash receivable. This is basically a loan that is owed to you, right? You gave someone a loan through your business and they owe money back to you, just as personally you would do. You do it through a business, it's the same thing. Trades receivable. This is a new one. You have sold something, but have not been paid for it yet. You have sold something, a physical, tangible object, but you have not been paid for it yet. Zakat is due on that. Okay. Why? Because zakat is due on all your merchandise, which is the last point here. All your stock and inventory, zakat is due on that. And when you sold something and haven't been paid for it yet, that money that you're owed is in place of that merchandise, which was zakatable to begin with. Okay, zakatable is a term that we use, which means zakat is due on it. Okay. So 4 things in a business: cash, loans that are owed to you, trades receivable, which is the money owed to you for something that you sold, and your merchandise. Now, how do you calculate your merchandise? You will, as long as you have it all up for sale, as long as you have it all up for sale, and usually in a business, technically, even though everything isn't on the shelves, you have it up for sale. Someone comes and says, you know, if you sell apples in your shop, I want 3,000 apples. You may have only like 500 out, but you have more in storage. It is available for sale if someone wants it. As long as it's up for sale, you will pay zakat on it on the retail value. Okay. If it's merchandise that you've bought and it's not yet ready to sell, then you can pay it on the wholesale value, what you got it for, basically. Okay. What is not zakatable in a business? Services receivable. If your business doesn't sell merchandise, it offers a service, and you provided a service but have not been paid for it yet, you will not pay zakat on that amount that you're owed. Okay, because a service itself is not zakatable. So if you're owed money because of a service, that as well is not zakatable. Okay. Prepaid expense, well, you already paid for it, the money is gone. You're not going to pay zakat on it now. Right? Even if it's for something that was going to happen in the future. For example, right, you have a supplier who supplies you, I don't know, water bottles. Okay. and you order 5,000 water bottles from this supplier every month. But you've paid him now in advance. You've been working with him for a long time. You have a good relationship. You trust the guy. And just to make it simpler for yourself and for him, so he doesn't have to invoice you every month, you've paid him now for 6 months in advance. And he hasn't given you the bottles yet. He gives you every month. You've prepaid an expense. That money is gone now from your possession. You won't pay zakat on that. Okay. The last three: fittings, fixtures, properties, plant, equipment, intangible fixed assets, anything you need to run your business. Anything, and I mean anything, you need to run your business, you won't pay zakat on it. That could be the building, it could be your shelves in your business, it could be your cash register, it could be your computers, your devices, your licenses, your patents, your lighting fixtures, anything.
Yes.
Gas, right? Anything that is being used to run your business, just like in your regular taxes, you can deduct anything that you're using to run your business, right? So, and when it comes to zakat is not due on any of that. So, if you have a property that you run your business out of, zakat is not due on that property.
So how about the property company, which is just buying and selling properties?
Yeah.
And it is like sort of inventory stock.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're, we're going to talk about it in properties, but it's connected to this too. So if you are a developer or someone who buys and sells properties, what you do, you buy them, you flip it, you sell it. The properties are your merchandise. The properties are your merchandise. So zakat could be due on it. I say could because there's some situations. We'll look at those in more detail. I think it's coming up just next, very soon. We'll look at that in more detail, inshallah. Right. Deductibles in a business, similar to your personal deductibles. Any money that you owe, right, from previous overdue bills, expenses, invoices, loans, same thing, the 12 months of capital payments you can deduct. Corporation tax. We're going to talk about this a bit. So, and income tax. Well, let's just say corporation tax. Taxes are something. Anyone an accountant here? Anyone an accountant over here? No? Okay, well.
That good for you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you cannot sit.
So taxes are something, from what I understand, as I wanted to ask, because there was an accountant here, that become due on you when you get your wealth, but they're paid once a year. Okay, does that sound right? You pay it? Yeah, on the gross profit, right?
Capital gains or like there's lots of categories.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that the taxes are due once you've made those gains, right? And then you pay it once a year when you do your taxes, right? Yeah.
Most corporations, most profit, then you deduct service and then you get taxed on whatever.
Okay. No, so I'm saying more from like a CRH perspective, or IRC for those in the States, that do they like, can you prepay your income tax? You can't? Someone said yes here. You could? Okay. We got 3-4 yeses. You're outnumbered.
It's different for the, let's say if I'm like working like $20 job, for example, and I'm working 3 different jobs, I can set up that like they'll deduct my tax as I'm making $100,000, all 3 jobs. And then I have to pay less because they're pre-deducting my tax already, and I'll get a return back. So if I'm doing like 3 jobs, and each job will show that I'm making $30,000 each, and they're gonna deduct according to that $30,000 bracket. And in the end, I'll owe money since I made $90,000, right?
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's gonna happen. That happens. But okay, those who are saying yes, you can. What you could prepay your taxes. What are you basing that off of?
Because the options itself, even for businesses, I noticed that there are options that if you want to prepay your tax, there is an option in advance.
Okay.
It's required, if you don't pay your taxes on time, they will charge you the rest.
No, I'm not talking about on time. I'm saying in advance.
Advance, they give you installment options that when you need to pay and when you can pay. For example, if you are little bit late, for example, if it is monthly, and if you 1 day or 2 day late, then they will charge you interest on the side. So my accountant, he has given me the list that when I need to pay.
No, so let's say in Canada, for example, taxes are due, I think, end of April every year, right? And people usually start doing their taxes from January onwards, right? That's when CRA, because usually the fiscal year is December 31st, and that's when you know how much tax you owe, right? But if someone, let's say in September of last year, they say, okay, this is how much tax I owe based off of January till now, and this is how much I think I'm gonna have to pay until December. I want to pay it all right now. Can you do that? Because that makes a big difference in zakat. Yeah.
I think is that due to online banking, there is an option, the CRA accounts are linked, this is confirmed, are linked with the banking system. And what happens is, as a business owner, you can pay whenever time you feel like, every month on monthly basis, you can pay on installment, anticipating that this is the time will be, I will be paid. But the business taxes, on the net income, they can vary. So you don't have to pay on installment unless you really think that you have made a lot of money. So if it's connected with your banking system, yes, you can pay it tonight.
Okay, so the reason why I'm asking is because if you could prepay your taxes, then it seems as though the taxes are already due on you, right? Or let's forget about, in my example, between September and December. Just look at January to September. In September, those taxes are already due on you, right? So you could pay at that time. That would mean that this is an amount of money that you owe. So you could deduct it from your zakat. Yeah.
And this is to bring in line with pay, pay as you earn. Because when the people who are on monthly income, they pay as they earn. So whereas somebody who has exceeded that, perhaps, so for them the installment.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So I think the same thing would apply to a corporation tax, right? Where if you did your zakat for your business in the middle, your zakat date falls in the middle of your fiscal year, right? You could deduct what taxes you owe up to that date. Okay, let's not talk about future ones. At least up to that date, because you're able to pay that. Technically, you already owe it, so you could deduct that. Okay. There's one other situation. Let's move away from this one now. This is a question I usually get, so I'll just address it. Is if a person owns a sole proprietorship, a corporation, and so they have not a sole proprietorship, a corporation, but they're the only owner of it. Do you pay zakat on the full what do you call it, value of the corporation, how much money it has, right, or not? Because as an individual, you are the sole owner of that business. But if you try to transfer all the money from the business to yourself, you can't. You have to pay huge amounts of taxes, right? Now, where this comes into the previous discussion we just had, is that at that point, you could transfer all of it to yourself. But when you do your taxes, you're gonna have to pay like 30-40% something in taxes. Right? So in that point, should you pay zakat on the full amount of the business, of the corporation? or should you pay on what you can access? What technically you could access? Let's say the corporation is worth 100,000, right? And if you were to withdraw the funds into your own account, you could withdraw all 100,000. But when you do your taxes, let's say in a few months, you're gonna have to pay like 40,000 in taxes for that. So your zakat date comes now. What do you pay zakat on the 100,000 or the 60,000? Right. So this is one point that I've seen different opinions from everyone I've asked and researched and looked for. So what I always say is base it on your own situation, your overall financial situation. If you can easily pay zakat on the full 100,000, then pay that. Yeah, but if you're in a difficult situation where it'll make things a lot harder for you if you pay on that much and it's making a big difference with that 40,000, then take the other opinion and pay it on the 60,000, the amount of the corporation that technically you could access if you were to. Okay.
The last slide, sorry, the bank loan.
Yeah.
Can come back. The bank loan, everyone is involved in, not everyone, most of the, if interest is, look at it. If interest is involved, such a loan is prohibited in Sharia. Bank loan, you know, in shape of mortgage, in shape of finances, your car, or like that. Prohibited as a Sharia, we agree, but unfortunately, if you got what the situation.
You deduct the next 12 months of capital payments, not the interest part of it.
In any case, any scenario.
Any scenario.
Car, property.
Car, house, bank,
Oh,
it doesn't matter. Whatever you bought.
Ayat in Surah Baqarah, which talks about riba, it gives a sense that you cannot charge, you cannot pay, but it doesn't exclude you from taking a loan with interest.
There are clear ahadiths that prohibit that. We're not gonna get into that right now, though. There are clear ahadiths that talk about giving, taking, and all of that, and interest is all haram. But like I said, we're not getting into that today. That's not our topic. Right.
I have a question about, you
Yes.
were talking about, your company have some money. And then you withdraw it and you will be paying 40% or whatever the tax amount is as a personal. But there is an option with the Canadian tax system where you can have remove your money from your bank. Remove your money from your business and park it some in another account.
Like a TFSA or RSP.
No. There's another thing I'm just, let me turn off my camera here. When you have assessed physical assets like cash, and you don't want to keep it in your own company, but under the operating company, but you can put it aside. There's a terminology I just forgot for.
Hide.
No, not hide.
Shelter it. You shelter it. Yeah, that's fine. I know what you're saying.
Then you, for that many years, you don't have to pay the taxes, but when you do more business or you lose money, then you can,
Bring that.
you can be like, you lose money first, and then you can claim with the money you are losing from that amount what you have put aside. So let me remember that terminology.
Offside.
Yeah, no, they, in Canada, you can keep it.
Checking of your losses against your profit.
No, when you put your money, not in your operating business, but you put your money on the side, it's called a holding company, yeah, sorry, that's called holding company.
Holding company.
You have something,
Yeah, so if it's a holding company, then it's the same idea.
yeah.
We're looking at potentially how much of the cash you could access right now if you were to need it, right? So
Holding company can hold as much account as much you want. You don't,
but from the holding company, if you want to use the money, can you use it?
no, That money is just put aside. It's not offshore company, it's not nothing. Yeah, no, seriously, that holding company you can create as a business owner, but that money is put aside. And CRA will not get that, that money will not be taxed for that fiscal year. Or the more incoming year. This is very, what do you call it? I want to explain.
Yeah, no, that you pay zakat on that.
You pay the government.
Yeah, pay zakat on it.
Let me put a question again so that you can explain on that. Yeah, I have a question about holding companies. A company has another holding company where they can park their money. And for that fiscal year, they don't have to pay taxes to CRA, but that's all recorded money in the legal holding company. What's your opinion on that?
The zakat will be due on that.
Okay.
It will be due on that, sure.
Yeah, so the holding company is the thing that we need to, yeah, it's a good tax shelter, but still you have to pay.
Okay, let's look at some different examples of how to evaluate your stocks.
You had a loan reduction there.
Loan deduction.
Yeah, but what you're saying the asset side you don't add up, but loan you can take it off. So your balance sheet and your Zakat reconciliation won't work. You understand what I'm saying? You're saying the assets like land and property, you could, it's not counted for Zakat. But if you have loans to fund them, you would take them as a setup.
Yeah,
So how would you balance it? Asset you are excluding and the loans which funded those assets. You're saying that you sort of take it as a deduction, but assets you're excluding to start with. So you would effectively.
so let's say the property, right? A property you bought for your business.
Yeah.
And you're paying it off. So the property itself, right? You're paying it off. So you technically, how Sharia have used it is you only own the part that you've paid off of it. The rest you're still paying off. Right? So the part that you've paid off, there's no zakat on that because it's something you're using for your building. And what you.
Something else. You had on your slide assets not to be included for Zakat,
Yeah,
but you said loans which were funding those assets have to be deducted.
yeah.
So if you don't have the assets to start with, you might end up with a negative zakat.
Yeah, that could happen. That could happen. If you're negative zakat, you don't pay zakat. That's it.
No, but that is a mismatch. How could you
It's
say
not.
that assets you bought?
You don't pay zakat. You don't pay zakat on those assets. But if you owe money on them, you could deduct that because you still owe that money. It's a loan. It's a debt.
It's an asset based funding.
Doesn't matter.
You have the asset. You may not have cash, but you may have the asset, hard asset.
No, so you're saying you want to pay zakat on it?
No, I'm not saying zakat. I'm saying that it doesn't hang together. That if you have asset and you have liability against it, the liability goes up, but asset doesn't include. So that's why you run into minus.
There's nothing wrong with going into minus. There's nothing wrong with going into minus.
So assets you said are not zakatable, but the financing against it could be taken off against your other sort of use zakat.
Yes.
So you're effectively in a mismatch.
No.
Why do you want to do that? If everybody has money and they are buying the properties, but there is no money generated on that. According to the money generated on all these properties, rent or this thing, you have to pay the zakat on that. So if the point is that
You gotta pay zakat on what?
The vacant property. If buying and keeping, but not giving rent, not getting benefit, but property is.
in that way he will multi-millionaire,
Of course.
but there is no money coming, or the properties are not generating any money. So how come, and then what, how will you think about these?
No, we haven't talked about properties yet. So we haven't talked about properties yet. Let's talk about those first. Let's wait till it comes. But the question that the brother is asking about in a business, right? Assets that you use to run your business, zakat is not due on them. Okay. If you have financed some of those, right? Let's say you financed a car that you use for your delivery service or something, right? You owe money. It's a debt owed on the business or on you, right? So whether that debt is on one of the assets in your business or it was a separate debt, it doesn't make a difference. It's about owing that money being owed on you. Sharia does not oblige you to pay zakat on money that you owe. That would be unethical. So if that happens and you go into negative, that's fine. You don't pay zakat.
You have hard assets.
Doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter. Assets are not zakatable that you're using to run your business, and any debts are deductible. After that, if you go into negative, you go into negative. Doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, of course, otherwise it's cut it.
Stock valuation. This is some examples of how to evaluate stock. This isn't like investment stock. This means like your merchandise, your inventory, right? So whatever condition it's in, that is what you will evaluate it at, right? If it's not, like I said, ready to sell, if it's at that stage, you pay zakat on the retail value. If it's anywhere before that, it's in the process, it's damaged, you don't have it yet, anything, then whatever its value is in that position, you'll use that valuation and pay zakat on that. Some examples. If you're a jeweler, all of the gold, silver, and jewelry at the retail value. If you're a property developer, that's the next slide. We'll talk about that there. Okay. If you're a restaurant, everything that you're selling, right? Your food, your ingredients, all of that, that's your merchandise. Right? You pay zakat on that. If you're a grocer, same thing. Whatever you're selling, whatever you're making money on, that is what zakat applies to. Properties. The only time zakat is due on a property is if you are in the business of buying properties to sell them, right? Even if you're just doing it once, doesn't matter. If you buy a property to sell it, zakat will add. It's up for sale and your zakat date comes, zakat is due on it. Okay. A property where you live, there's no zakat, even if you own multiple properties. Rental property, there's no zakat. The rent that comes in, you add that to your personal finances, you pay zakat on that. Maybe you spent the rent, maybe you still have it. When your zakat date comes, whatever you have gathered, you'll pay zakat on that. You bought a property, you're not sure. You might sell it, you might not sell it, no zakat due. You bought it to sell it, zakat is due. You change your intention, no, I'm not going to sell it anymore, zakat is not due. The one place where it is a bit of a gray area, and the different opinions on this, is if you have bought a property to flip it, you're working on it. It's not up for sale yet, and the zakat date comes in the middle, right? Most say you should still pay zakat on that, based on the value that it has at that time. Just like when we looked at over here, in the condition, work in process, right? What example do they give? Do they give an example? No. So let's say you're a carpenter, right? And you make cabinets or something. So the value of the cabinets built is more than the individual pieces of wood that you have, right? But you don't have to pay zakat on what this could be worth. You'll pay zakat on its value in its current condition. All the planks where you have granite, you have countertops, you have everything. Right? Same thing in properties. If that's what you're doing, you're buying and selling properties, the properties are your merchandise. Right? So whatever condition it's in at that time, you're still working on it. Because the zakat date comes, you should pay zakat on it. Right? If it's up for sale, then there's no question zakat is due on it at the time. Right? But in the previous case as well, if you buy multiple properties, you're working on all of them at the same time, the zakat date comes, whatever it's worth in that condition, it'll be less than what the resale value is going to be. At that point, whatever the value is, you pay zakat on that. Yes.
About the rental property in the last slide, can you do that? Yeah, in the second one, rental property not the carpet. Suppose I have one house, I have 2 bedrooms, suite and 1 bedroom. The earning coming 500, 500
Yeah.
in the whole year, but I am living in the same house. And that whatever the income by the whole suites, I am putting in the bank, so it is at the end of the year, I will pay the zakat on that.
Yeah.
But in other scenario, if you are not living, you have the second property,
Yeah.
which is on rent base. Whatever in the whole year, suppose it is startup fees or it is repair, whatever the damage is, 12 multiplied by 1,000, suppose 1,000 rent, 12,000 minus startup, whatever it is, 6,000 minus. You have to pay on that 6,000 which you generate money from the second rental property.
Yeah. So when we say rented property is not zakatable, we mean the property itself.
Property value means.
Yeah, property value is not
But the rent-
zakatable. The rent, anything that will come in, you add it. Yeah, it's just like a paycheck,
Yeah.
right? It's coming to you when the zakat date comes. However much you have left of it, maybe you spent it all, maybe you did it, maybe you saved it all. Whatever you have when that date comes, now you're gonna pay zakat on that amount.
Thank you.
Yes.
So, I have a question about pre-sales. I don't know if you know about that or not. It's like, so you buy a
Yeah.
pre-sale, for example, right? And then they offer you, let's say you bought a property for $500,000. And then pay them 10% upfront, and then completion is not for like 8 years or 10 years, right? For example. So I pay them $50,000, there's no mortgage on it. The property value is increasing like every year, like or something like that. I have to, let's say, if it goes up $100,000, now basically my assignment worth $150,000. I already had 50,000 in there, and 100,000 value went up. So do I pay zakat on that? Since I don't even have the property, but then it's gonna be completion is 10 years, my intention is that I'm gonna sell it before completion, so I don't get involved in the mortgage. So
Is this pre-sale in a case where the property exists or is being built?
getting built, it's not in existence, so basically they haven't even laid anything yet, or it's like you can sell the assignment, for example. Before, within that 10 years, like the intention is try not to get like a mortgage. So you sell it,
Yeah.
but you still walk away with the profit, for example, right?
Yeah. So in the case of a pre-sale purchase, and the price has gone up before the value has gone up before the term has matured, and your zakat date comes, you will take the value of it in that condition. In
And
that
then
state.
you minus like, suppose like, let's say that it went up $100,000, right?
Yeah.
And then let's say today, like I go sell that property, for example, right? So I have to pay, let's say $10,000 to the developer to sell that, that's assignment fee on there, for example, like they have an assignment fee of 1%, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then also like, and then on the $100,000, obviously you have to pay that taxes, let's say $25,000. So your net profit that you're gonna walk away with, it's gonna be, let's say $75,000 plus your $50,000. So you pay on $125,000, or do you just pay on like 150?
So yeah, he's asking if what was it called, the fee?
Assignment fee.
Assignment fee, that if you were to sell that property, you would have to pay like 10,000 to the broker, the assignment fee, and the developer. Yeah, so it's the same thing as same example as what we'll talk about in the corporate tax, that how much you can actually access versus how much it's worth in its whole condition as it is. So it would be better to pay it on the whole, right? But based on a person's situation, if it'll be difficult for that, then they could use those things as deductions and pay it on the reduced amount. The assignment fee, I think you could definitely subtract.
Yeah.
And the taxes, you gotta see if you want to do that or not.
Okay, another question, according to that, let's say that my money is tied up, let's say in resale, right? Rather than keeping the money in the bank where like, they're using the money for interest purposes and stuff like that. You find it in a sense that, your money is gold and then you're not paying any interest or
Yeah.
receiving interest on it. So technically you don't have any money to pay right now. Can you wait, let's say 4 or 5 years till you sell it and you pay back the money in this?
Yeah, you can wait. Yeah,
You can
that's
wait
okay.
that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Yes.
Doesn't speculation come under the same heading as interest? I mean, interest is not capital. So
Speculation tax or speculation in general?
You're buying things with the intention of speculation. You're speculating it.
You're speculating that the value is gonna go up? That's fine. That's in any business. You're hoping it goes up,
No,
but you don't know.
There is when it is disproportionate speculation. In my opinion, speculation is not quite correct. Gambling.
Interest is very clearly defined in Quran and Hadith. That doesn't fall under interest. But let's say the Sharia that prohibits that. Yes.
Most of the Canadians, they don't have 100% cash and they buy property. And they are on mortgage for like 25 years. And where that house where you are living, so it's ratable or what?
No. If you're living in the house, there's no zakat due on it.
No, yeah, that's fine, yeah. Yeah.
One question, if you are buying a property to sell it in the future, but still you are renting out in the meantime. Anyway, you are planned to sell it, so.
Yeah.
it is a-
If you have your prior, you have it leased. If
It's not like most of the time we buy a property, for example,
yeah.
buy to sell. We are not going to just leave it.
No, that's different. If you bought a property and you have it, you have it leased, sometime in the future I may sell it, right? Then there's no zakat on that.
So immovable property doesn't have zakat, like if a big landlord and if he rents, he pays, you say on the income fees.
Yeah. On the income.
But if somebody is holding large estates, he won't pay anything on immovable property. But a poor person having some cash would pay little bit, whatever the due zakat you say. So, I mean, I thought Islam is all about equity and justice and fairness, isn't it? So guy with a big property gets away and a guy with a small cash or a small goods of trade stock has to pay. So how do you sort of reconcile in terms of broader fairness?
It's all about the numbers, right? Zakat has a fixed threshold. At the end of the day, you look at how much you have. There's nothing wrong in Sharia for someone having a lot of money or assets or buildings or properties. If someone has it, Allah has given it to them, they have it. Right now, when it comes to zakat, the properties are something that they are using to run their business. Just because this person's
I'm not saying that somebody is holding property. I have no situations around the world where people have big property and they are not necessarily rented. So are we saying that those guys are exempted? But I've seen the poor guys who have small businesses, small stock in trade, some cash in bank. So they are liable, we're saying, and we're saying that the guy with big property in states have no liability of paying anything.
it depends. It depends. There's no concept of Sharia, big guy and poor guy.
Sharia rule, is it that immovable properties are total exclusion and only sort of whatever the goods of trade.
Remember, Sharia won't make something zakatable just because it's worth a lot. Right? If tomorrow this bottle is worth $10 billion, we're not gonna say pay zakat on it, it's worth 10 billion. That doesn't matter. It's what the asset is, what type of asset it is. If Sharia is it zakatable or not, the value has no effect in defining whether it's zakatable or not. Properties happen to be very expensive here, right? Or almost everywhere. That doesn't mean that now just because they're expensive, you pay zakat on it. That doesn't make a difference. It's all about the numbers. There's a fixed threshold for zakat. Give me an example of concrete with numbers. This rich person has this much, this. The poor person has this much, this is this. Who should pay zakat? Who should not? I'll tell you. Right, but in general, just to say that because something is worth a lot and this person has a lot of it, he should pay zakat. That doesn't work. Doesn't make sense. Yes.
I think the brother is talking about the situation where there's a high net worth individual.
Yeah.
Who owns estates, so land, a large amount of land which is worth a lot of money, let's say 10 million. And he's asking for
10 billion, 10 trillion. Go on.
100 million.
Yeah.
And so the zakat, if it was cash, he would have to pay 2.5%, which is 2.5 million.
Yeah.
But because it's in property.
Yeah.
It's land, basically, and let's say he's not living on it, so it's not residential, and he's not renting it out, so it's not a rental property. Should he pay zakat on the 100 million property?
No.
Why?
That's what I'm saying, he's getting away, and a small businessman with a small stock in trade has to pay. So it doesn't.
Zakat isn't a punishment. That you have money, you pay zakat. Right? No, so let's say tomorrow the real estate market crashed like never before, and that 100 million now is now worth it's worth $1,000 now. Right? Do you think Sharia's hukum should change now because of that?
No, it's a short.
No.
trade. See, the land
Right?
is scarce.
It doesn't matter what the value, that's what I'm saying. The value of the thing doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
So, residential and rentals are all exempt from zakat. Why is it just for land exempt? It could be an asset like buy to sell, right?
Because a lad, yeah, I mean, if that's the case, if they bought it to sell it, then yes, they'll pay zakat on it. Right?
So like you convert your asset into immovable property and you're exempt. from it.
It depends what you're gonna do with that property.
Ultimately,
Depends.
If you have a large amount of land, you're exempt. Why? If you have big property.
Yes.
I got a question for the brother there. I know his like, I understand where he's coming from. The thing is, let's say I got like 1,000 acres from my grandfather, or something like that, right? And you have a small business. You're saying that you're paying zakat and I'm not paying zakat. The thing is, my question is to you is, what can I do that you can't right now? Like, am I like, if I sell that, let's say I'm going to vacation, I'm not working at all, I'm losing that money, right? Then it's income, I have to pay the zakat on it. But if it's laying there, I can't do anything about it, right? So the property value as a small thing, it goes down, right? I lose everything. You know what I mean?
Property doesn't go down. Land
But
is
it's
scarce.
okay, it's like,
Real scenario is that land is scarce. In the short term, you might have fluctuation, but land is scarce, so it will always go up. You can go back into the history and.
But if I'm selling the land and have the money in my
But
account,
if I convert my cash into assets, if I convert my cash into immovable property, then I'm exempt from that. But if I keep it cash, I have to pay.
Okay, khalas, let's move on, inshallah. I'll give it my answer. If brothers don't agree with it, that's up to you. I'm not here to enforce anything. I'm here to give you, yes. No, so if it's like a secondary property that you stay in sometimes you don't, then the zakat won't be due on that either. No. 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 Okay, now one thing in business in general, right? And the reason why this is at the end of the business discussion is because properties are zakatable when they're being used as a business, right? So it's all your intention. You have to have the clear intention to resell something. If you're not sure what you're gonna do, if the value goes up, then I'm gonna sell it. There's no zakat due on that. It has to be a clear cut that this is what I'm doing, this is gonna happen, and in that time the zakat comes, the date comes, you'll pay zakat.
Before you move ahead, to 1:30, prayer time, they
Yeah, no, we're gonna pray after 2 o'clock because there's class upstairs. Our masala is upstairs, but there's kids having class there. So once they leave, then we'll go pray, inshallah.
And also, I want to take some pictures and videos for the women's side from my TV, which I have already applied. So I just want your permission as well.
The ladies will be.
If they're okay with it, if they're not, then just from the back. Don't get any of their faces. Is that okay,
Yeah, that's fine.
sisters? If someone says no, then we'll say no. Yeah, only from the back. Okay, practice problem. You have personal cash, gold and silver, business merchandise, okay, tangible assets that you're selling, monthly rental income, mortgage, capital amount, we're gonna say this is, loan given to masjid, that we're gonna say you want to pay zakat on it now, overdue invoices, so expenses that happened beforehand, trades receivable, and services receivable. By the way, some people have not shown up, so if someone wants a booklet that they didn't get, you can grab grab one from the back.
There's a fundamental flaw in your question here. You
Okay.
say that you're mixing up assets with the cash. And income, sorry, you're mixing up assets with the income. So income would eventually transfer into cash again, you understand? So you can't add up in your list assets with income.
I didn't say add it. I gave you the problem. Do you add it or not? That's for you to decide. I just gave you the fact. This is what this person has in their life. How much zakat do they pay? Right? Let's see. But it's good that you caught on to that. Okay, we have one answer in 1282.5. Give you guys a few more minutes. Invoices where? Oh, that you have to pay. Yeah. There's some food here. Where's Okay, two more answers came in, 1847.5, 1785. 1847, you know? 1785. Okay, we have 2-2. Yes. Some guidance on vested, unsold RSU, ESPP stocks. We're talking about stocks, inshallah. It's coming up. Anyone? This side? 2717. Okay, yeah. Yeah. It's gonna come. We're gonna talk about it. Yeah. Yeah, it's gonna come towards the end of it. Inshallah. 1785. Okay, anyone else on this side? Okay, let's see. 1005. Okay. I'm all scared of these that I made a mistake. Let's see. Okay, you're gonna first see what assets are zakatable. You have the cash, the gold, silver, the business merchandise. Oops. Okay, my bad. Okay, so then in that case, so if it was 3, it was 2, then that would be 24,000. Was 5,400. 29,400. I'm getting 1305 with that. Okay, so let's go through it together then. We add these up, all the ones that are in green. Right? Cash, gold, silver, merchandise, loan given. We said you want to pay on zakat on it now. Trades receivable, you get 81.6. Right? All agreed on that? Rental income, it doesn't come into play. Right? Whatever you already got, you already have it in your assets. What you haven't got doesn't affect your zakat. Services receivable, again, they're not zakatable. Money you owed because of a service that you did, no zakat on that. Deductibles, the overdue invoices for sure, 5,400. And your monthly mortgage, let's do it based off of the 2,000 that was here. So 24,000, 12 months, right? 24,000. That's 29,400. We do 81.6 minus 29,400. You get 52,200 times 0.025. You get 1,305. So a few of you got 1785 or 1847. What were you guys doing different? You included the rental? So here's a rental income. It could be your monthly salary, right? Whatever it is, you don't include that in anything.
One question before.
Yes.
Yeah, the question, but again, there are a lot of things. Like I buy a property and planning to sell in the future when it rises up, maybe 10 years, 20 years later. So sometimes I rent it, sometimes I don't rent it. It's lying around. So the properties are not.
No. You're gonna sell it if the price goes up?
Yeah.
right? You're assuming it will, but it's not a definite thing, right? So you won't. Because it's an income, right? So whatever you've already gotten, it's already in your possession, right? This isn't like an amount that's owed to you or something. This just happens to be what this person's monthly income is, right? In general, that's what money they get every month. So whatever is already included, they're already included. What they haven't gotten yet, it falls under the weak debt, money that is going to be owed to you, not because you gave money anywhere, and that's not zakatable. So it doesn't really play in. Basically, the person's personal cash, it already includes the income that they've gotten. Yeah. Purpose of? To throw you off. To throw you off. Or to make sure, because people think that you might include that, to make sure you know not to include that. No. That's we don't want to count it twice. It's already in your money that you have. Investments. You guys want a break or you're good? Okay. Investments. We're talking about stock market. Okay. There are a few different scenarios, cases that one could fall under. If you're short-term trading, by short-term, we mean less than 1 lunar year. So you buy stocks and you sell them, whether it's day trading. Again, I'm not going to go into whether that's permissible or not. But if someone is doing that, even if it's not day trading, let's say you buy a stock after a few weeks, if it goes up, you sell it, and you do that back and forth. You're not holding it long-term, more than 1 year. Then those stocks are basically like your business merchandise. You're going to pay zakat on their full value. Okay, when your zakat date comes, whatever they're at, if the value has gone down, that's fine. Whatever the lesser value is that day, you pay zakat on that. Okay, it's simple, straightforward. When it's long term, it gets a little bit complicated. There's 3 different ways to do it for the long term. Okay, you invest in a company and you're going to hold it for you don't know how many years. One day you might sell it when you need the money. The first is a formula. Okay, this is a formula that the National Zakat Foundation has come up with, and it works pretty well. It ends up getting you very close to the actual number, and it always gets you a bit higher than what it should be. So you have that cushion in there, and that is the zakatable asset ratio times the current value of your holdings. Okay, so this is the current value of your stock portfolio. The zakatable asset ratio, that's the total current assets of the company divided by its market cap. Again, if you're familiar with investments, these terms will make sense to you. If not, they won't, so don't worry about it. For example, you own 10 stocks of ABC, you're a long-term investor. Company's total current assets are 144 billion. Their market cap is 2 trillion. And the current stock price is $120. You need your zakatable asset ratio. To get that, you divide the total assets by the market cap. Your ratio is 0.077. Multiply that by the total value of your holdings, which is 1,200, 10 shares. And you get the total value of your zakatable portion. This isn't how much zakat you're going to pay. Okay? Some people confuse that in stocks because you're taking percentages and it gets confusing. This is the zakatable portion. You're going to pay 2.5% of this. Okay? So you just need to get these values from the company, and you just plug into the formula, and it's pretty straightforward. Yes.
When they invest the money they use for the and you get profit. So you have to pay it back in the
They take a loan and then they invest the loan. You took a loan. And you invest the loan. Yeah. So it's a very good question. I was gonna sort of talk about that when we talk about pensions, but some say you should pay zakat on it because you're benefiting from that wealth, right? And the whole idea of zakat, it applies to wealth that there's a concept in Sharia called nama, which means increase, and things that have intrinsic monetary properties, they increase over time, generally, right? Sometimes it decreases, but it has that property of increase. So what happens in a case like this is because you're also benefiting from an increase in that wealth, although it's not yours, right? So what some scholars say is that pay zakat on the increased amount of what you're gaining from there, not on the loan amount. Some say pay it on all of it because you're increasing. Right. So at the very least, it would be good to pay it on the amount that you're increasing, that you're gaining. Yes.
Related question, in the pandemic year, the government pay to small business people. Some business has been already collapsed, but they are not using the 40,000 that business government gave. But he started any other small business and making money. So he have to pay for 40,000 is government giving to the business for 3 years. So every year he or she will pay for that 40,000 if he is generating money. If he is losing in another business, because one business is collapsed. Government gave money to run up, but unfortunately can't survive. He started the same money, used in another way, buying something else and making money. So the ratio of the every year, because it is for 3-year loan, government gave 3-year loan up to 23 and of 23. So the 40,000, 3 years back, every year we have to pay off 2.5% zakat on of that 40,000.
Okay, so about the SIBA, right? This creating something emergency business loan, something. The way that that's structured is that if it's 40,000 loan that they gave, if you pay back 10,000, you get to keep 30,000, right? And if it's 60,000, then you give back 15,000, you get to keep 45,000, something like that. So I would say pay zakat on the amount that you're going to get to keep, because you're going to pay back the rest, so you can keep that. Right? Any sensible person would do that. So on the amount that you're going to keep, pay zakat on that amount. Right? Okay, so this was the first way to do a calculation of zakat on stock investments. The best way to do it, the most accurate way, is to look at the financial statement of every company. And basically, when you buy a share in a company, you own that percent of the company. It can be a very, very small percent, right? But you are part owner in that company. So now you treat it like you would if it was your own company. What assets of my company are zakatable? See how much cash there is, how many merchandise, trade receivable, so on, and then subtract liabilities, debts, and so on. And then whatever you get at the end, see what your portion of ownership is in that, might be 0.00001%. Right? You take that, and that is the amount of zakatable assets in the company. And then you pay 2.5% on that. So that's the most accurate way. You look at each company that you own shares in and look at their financial statements for the year and see if you own 100% of that company, how much zakat would you pay on it? Right? See, calculate that first, and then see based on your percentage of ownership, how much you would pay zakat, and you pay it that way. Does that make sense? It's a lot more difficult, a lot more longer way to do, but this is the most accurate. And this is the way you will pay the least zakat, by the way. And so if that is a concern for you, you can do that and you can pay that way. Yes.
So, same thing with the property here as well. So I was wondering why, I don't know, one is more easily liquidable, whereas property takes time to liquidate.
So the reason why there's a difference in the zakat for between properties and long-term investments, same because in a long-term investment, you own part of a company, and that company is a business. And if you own the entire company, you would pay zakat on it as your own company. But if you own part of it, you owe zakat on that proportion of your ownership in it. Otherwise, you wouldn't. Whereas a property, it's not a business. Yeah, but that property itself is not a business, it's not a company that has expenses and it makes it earns money or something. It's a different type of asset. That's why it's different in that regard, right? But the same thing, if you're treating your property like a business where you're buying and selling them, then yes, zakat will be due there as well. Okay, the last way to do it is to use what we call a proxy. Proxy, this is a percentage that the National Zakat Foundation researches every year based off of all the Sharia compliant companies in the S&P 500 and in the TSX, in the Toronto Stock Exchange. And they go through all of them and they see what is the average number of assets that are zakatable in each company. Okay. Every year they revisit it. This year they haven't done it yet. Okay, I just spoke to them yesterday. They haven't done it yet for this year, but it's always been between 25 and 30%. Okay, for the past decade or so. So you could use this. You will usually end up paying the most zakat this way. Okay, because you will be paying more than you actually owe, but it's the easiest way to do it. You take your total value of your investment portfolio, right? Let's say it's like 5,000. Take 30% of it, right? Which is 1,500. Yeah, 1,500. And you pay 2.5% of that. That's your zakat. Okay, so we're not saying pay zakat 30%. Okay, these aren't your income taxes or something. 2.5% of 30%, right? So if you want to get just one percentage, you could do that. You could do 30 times 0.025. No, I messed that up. 30. No, I'm doing this wrong. Yeah. 0.75 percent of your total investment portfolio. Okay. The last one is not really a scenario. I mean, if you're cashing out, you decide that, okay, I'm going to cash out on my zakat date. If that happens, then you deduct any fees and taxes you would pay upon making those deductions, or that would become owing on you, and the rest of it you add it to your own assets, your own cash, and you pay zakat on it. Okay, let's take a break. The food is here. Some of the brothers, if you can please just move it down there onto the table.
Question. Quran sort of gives an impression that you should be sharing beyond your need. And here we are putting percentages, what to give. So is it a sort of hang together concept there from there?
So I mean, if there isn't an amount on it, then how would you know what to give? Give any amount, right? So what we're looking at is the minimum, right? What is the actual due on you? Like I said, it's always better to give more.
But if Allah is giving us a direction, and it's a question to Rasul in the diet. They ask you and what they should give, and answer is sharing beyond need. Here we are saying, no, you restrict it to some percentage. So there is a contradiction there or what?
That verse is general. يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا يُنْفِقُونَ قُلِ الْعَفْوُ. That spend the excess, al-afu.
Yes.
That's what it means,
excess.
right? That means that a person should not spend money that they need to live their life. Sharia does not want us to give away our wealth and then spend our life in difficulty. Right? We are not at that level of iman that Sahaba were at to be able to do that and then not come back and blame Sharia. Oh, it said give away all my money. Right? So that ayah though is about sadaqah in general. That if you have excess wealth, then give sadaqah. As much as you can give is good to give. Right? Zakat is a different thing where there are fixed guidelines and exactly how this should be calculated. But like I said, if someone is in a situation where it's difficult for them to pay the zakat or something, then this is the bare minimum that you have to pay. Someone could give more, it's always better to give more. Right? There's no reason why someone can't say, I'm going to do my entire zakat calculation based off of 5% this year instead of 2.5. By all means, go ahead and do it. It's a good thing. Yeah, give additional, that's always good. Right? But this is just the exact guidelines, what you can fall below. Otherwise, you leave it open, someone's going to say, okay, this year I'm going to give $10, next year I'll give 10 million, next year I'm going to give 1,000. There have to be strict guidelines that you follow. And that's where hadith comes in. And hadith gives us those exact guidelines of what to follow and how to do it.
Good question.
Yes.
Suppose any family want to marry his daughter or son, after just one day or 1 week after that time period what he calculated. So he designates some money, suppose 10,000, 20,000, 10,000 liability on that. So we have to pay on the rest of the money, suppose banquet all he is the 10%. Rest of the money of banquet all he has to give after 1 week. About 1 week of calculation day. So he can keep that money, whatever he have to pay to the banquet hall or other.
No, it's a future expense. Whether it be a wedding or something else, it's a future expense. You have to pay zakat on that. Yeah. All right, let's take a break, brothers. Let's take 15, 20 minutes. You can have some food, inshallah.
Then prayer. Or first prayer, then food.
Food and then prayer. Because the kids will take like 10, 15 minutes to leave.
Okay.
They finish at 2 and then they leave. So have your food and then we'll pray the Dhuhr, inshallah, upstairs. And we'll come back and start again, inshallah. Right, so about let's try to aim for 20, 25 minutes, including salat time. Okay, while people settle back in, if anyone has any questions, I can take them now just to save some time later. Yes. We'll talk about it, inshallah. Yeah, inshallah. Will the recording be emailed? Yes, it will, inshallah. Okay, are we good to go? Still missing some people. Yeah. Okay. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Let's look at pension funds. Now, this example is for RSPs. The same applies to almost all pension funds. If there is something unique of a pension fund that you want to ask about, then keep that for the end Q&A. Let us look at this, and the same principle applies to everything. So I'm going to pick up my pace a bit throughout the rest because we're a bit short on time. But if anyone needs me to repeat something at some time, please let me know, inshallah. Pension funds come from different sources. Some are money that you put in, some are money that your employer puts in, some are money that your employer puts in from your money. Right? Sometimes that's optional, sometimes it's not optional. So you need to see, the main thing you have to see to start with is what is that fund made up of? Okay. Employer contributions, and this includes anything automatically withdrawn from your paycheck, meaning it doesn't come to you, it goes straight there. You're going to, is that vested or not? Vested means, is it actually yours? If you leave the company tomorrow, do those funds stay with you or does it stays with the company? If it's not vested, it's not yours, there's no zakat. Okay. If it's vested, you take that and add on any contributions you have made to it yourself. Okay, that's your pool of possibly zakatable pension fund. Next, you look at, do you have access to it or not? Meaning, if you want to withdraw the funds today, can you? In many cases, you could. If you can't, next level, what is being done with those funds right now? Are they just sitting there in an account? And more money is being added to it every month? Or is it being invested? If it's sitting there and you don't have access to it, there's no zakat due on it. When you withdraw it at retirement, then from there it joins your wealth and you start paying zakat with that. There's no backdating either. Okay, if they're invested, and this is what I think, I forgot who asked the question about if you take a loan and then it's invested. This is where I'm going to talk about it, where although you don't have access, but it's invested, so you're benefiting from that growth. And some scholars say, like I said, that you should pay zakat on it still. That's why it's in green here. Some say you don't. They say no access, no pay. Done. Okay. But at the very least, I always advise at least pay zakat on the growth that has taken place. So that's something you're benefiting from. It's good to pay zakat on that. Yes.
My company, like, it's invested, but it's a guarantee though, like, either like if it goes down, so pay a certain amount and you retire type of thing.
Yeah.
So how would that work?
Same thing if it's invested and it's like a guaranteed, like it's growing over time. Yeah, so when your zakat date comes to see how much is based on the contributions that have been made and how much is grown because of the investment. On that difference, pay zakat on that. When you have access to it, then you will pay zakat. In either case, whether it's in a savings account, or if it's invested, right? It's just the difference is about how much you're going to pay, how you're going to get. So in both cases, it's annually because you have access to it. When it's in savings, you pay zakat on the full amount minus the what's it called, withholding tax or something that applies, and any penalties that would apply when you withdraw those funds, and they're usually pretty high, like 30-40%. So you hypothetically subtract that from your funds, the difference that you could access at that time, you pay zakat on that. If it's invested, then treat it like your other stock investments. Use the proxy amount. You want to go into more detail, look into every company where it's invested. If it's invested in a what's it called? We have a bunch of companies in one. Not a mutual fund. Oh, that too.
JIC? EIC?
No, I forgot the term. ETF, yeah. We have like hundreds or sometimes thousands in one. Good luck if you want to go look at each one. You just use the proxy, take 30%, minus the taxes and penalties that would apply, and pay zakat on that. Okay. So if you break it down to each thing, it's pretty straightforward, right? What type of account you have access, don't have access, what's being done with the funds, and you pay zakat on that. This applies to RSP, it applies to our ESP as well. The thing in our ESP, it's usually in the children's name, right? So that goes back to the first thing we talked about, if there's zakat on the children's wealth. So according to most, you should pay that. The parents should pay it on their behalf, right? But then it goes to the same thing, that do you have access to it? There's different, some RESPs, if you want, you can access it before the child goes to post-secondary education, right? Some you can't, it's just locked in, you can't touch it. So same thing would apply. What type is being, where are those funds sitting right now? Are they just in the bank, or they're being invested? All of that comes into effect. Most pension funds out there can follow this criteria, and you can figure out what whether it's zakatable or not. All right, and like I said, if you have unique ones that don't fall under these categorizations, then you can ask that at the end in the Q&A, inshallah. Practice problem. I don't do one together, make you do one. So say some. So here you have three investments. You have RRSP, access and savings. Okay, what does that mean? Access and savings. So full amount minus penalties. So what we did, this is the gross investment portfolio. This one here, 7,000. And I think I wrote it here. Yeah. So the withdrawal penalty is $2,000. And we're going to use the proxy for the sake of facilitating the calculation. So 7,000 becomes 5,000 down here because the penalties that would apply if you withdrew those funds. Right here, we took 30% of the investment portfolio. We used the proxy, 2,100. You add these two together to get your total zakatable portfolio. Okay, because we're taking 30% of the investments only, ABC, not of the RSP because it's not invested, it's in savings. Okay, if it was invested, then we would do 30% of the whole thing, of the whole total, and then 2.5% of that 30%. In this case, we took 30% of the investments that gave us 2,100. We minus the 2,000 from the 7,000 RSP. Added those together, that's your total zakatable assets, 2.5%. Okay. Any questions? Good. Okay, this one you guys can do. Personal zakatable assets, business zakatable assets, equity investments, so like shares, stocks, RRSP, same thing, access and savings, and RESP, same thing, access but invested. Okay, and to remind you, when you have access, you pay zakat on it. If it's in savings, it's the full amount minus the penalty. If it's the RESP, if it's invested, it's the proxy amount. Okay. Here we have a RRSP with our penalty of $1,000 for this. There's no penalty for this in this case. Okay. Okay, any answers?
395.625.
395.625, okay. 395, anyone else? One four five 1.25, okay. Okay, let's take a look. Ready? 1356.75. Okay, how did we get that? So on the right here, you have the amount of the original amount that is zakatable. This is the full amount, 11 to 11, 32 to 32. Here we took 30% of 7,500, right? Here we subtracted the $1,000 penalty, so we got 7,400. Here we took 30% of 5,400. Yes. On the RESP, no. I said it's just for the RESP. Yeah. Okay, you add those together, your total zakatable assets are 54,270, 2.5% of that.
So the gross asset, did you add everything?
Yeah, just add it all up. Doesn't really matter. Yeah, you don't really need that. Yes. This one? Let me turn it. This one? So we just took 30% of this. The proxy. The proxy is it's an average of most companies around the world, the average amount of zakatable assets that they have, plus some more as a cushion. That's where it comes from.
The calculable asset on top of the business is already calculated, right?
It's already done, yeah. That's why I wrote zakatable in there.
And equity investment is we have invested already in the company.
Yeah,
That'll be 30%.
yes.
And then what's the RSP for is if you take it out, so your penalties,
1,000 penalty, yeah.
minus that. 74, and then-
And this one we took 30% of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
No penalty, no. Alright. Okay, moving on. Yes. And so the blue is calculated from these here. So we lost 70% of the 7,500 here. We lost $1,000 here, and we lost 70% again over here. Because they're investments. So investments we just take 30%. That's one of the methods to do it. And in this one there was $1,000 penalty. So that's where that went away. Okay. Okay, collectibles. Very quickly, collectibles, if it's actually a collectible long term, there's no zakat on it. Okay, whether it be NFT or something else, you collect stamps, you collect coins. Well, okay, coins I'm gonna talk about. Different anything you collect cups or something. If it's long term, there's no zakat. If it's a collectible of gold or silver coins, then there's zakat on them because gold and silver are gold and silver. Yes.
What vehicles? Something about vehicles.
If it's just for the sake of collection, then there's no zakat on it.
Anything collectible, beautiful.
Collect, yeah, doesn't matter what it is. Right, only exception if it's coins, gold or silver, then zakat will be due on that. Right.
Most of them are bought with the intention of keeping it up for a long, long time.
Yeah, so if it's like I said, if it's more than 1 year, we consider. Yeah, it's more than if you plan to sell it, maybe sometime in the future, but more than 1 year, then there's no zakat on it. Right, only if it's short term where you're buying and selling things. Yes.
Let's say you have like a car of $60,000, let's say you're collectible, right? And you sell it, and you make profit, like you may sell it for 100,000, so you pay the on the 400,000, and if putting in your savings account.
If you sell it and you have the money with you, yeah, you pay zakat on that then. Yes. The value of the metal of the gold and silver.
Importance of whether it's long term.
Yes. Doesn't matter. Yeah. Okay. Digital currencies. This is still a thing that is very unclear in the world, whether it's even permissible or not. If it's not permissible, like we said, if any impermissible wealth, there's no zakat on it. Right? This is based off the view, I'm not saying it's my view. This is based off the view that it is permissible. Okay, so there's 3 approaches that I've heard from different scholars. This isn't anything formal. Next year, this could be something different. It's an evolving situation. The most cautious approach is treated like any other currency, pays zakat on the whole thing. Okay, a balanced approach, and these terms I made up, by the way. Okay, they're not anything official. They're just different opinions I've heard from scholars around the world what to do, and they happen to fall in like in a sequence. Where the most cautious is pays zakat on the whole thing.
Cash to equities.
Yeah, based on this approach, yeah.
Digital currency, so it's comparable to cash, stored in equities.
That's the thing. The thing in Sharia, there are a number of criteria that have to be fulfilled before Sharia recognizes something as a currency. Just naming it that is not enough. It's a digital currency. Right. So that's why in the balanced approach, Bitcoin and Ethereum, these are 2 of the most established ones, and these 2 fulfill many of the criteria that Sharia has for a currency. That's why in this approach, you treat those 2 as currencies and the rest as equity. And the undesirable one is where you're basically trying to avoid paying zakat, more zakat, you treat it all as equity investments. So this one you shouldn't do. Right? Best one to do if you have digital currencies is treat it as a currency, and like the brother said, pay zakat on the whole thing. Okay, because in your view, it's a currency, right? That's why you have it, that's why you're using it. So pay zakat on the whole thing. Yeah. Yeah. And we're gonna send these slides out to everyone, inshallah. You're gonna have all these. Zakat al-Fitr, really quickly, Zakat al-Fitr is due before Eid Salat, before Eid al-Fitr Salat, on every member of the family. The only condition is that, where to go? Here. If a person has wealth in surplus to their and their dependents' needs for the day of Eid, day and night, day of Eid, if you have more money than that, then it's due on you and everyone in your family, no matter how old they are. Newborn baby, 2 hours old, Eid comes, you got to pay for them. Okay, the amount it varies. $10 this year. BCMA here announced $20. I'm not totally in agreement with that, but it I would say $15 is a better approach for this year. But just like in all other cases, that's the minimum. If you can easily give $20 a person, give it by all means. Especially if you always go by what BCMA says here. If they set that amount, give that. Yeah, they jump from 10 to 20. I don't know. Last year they asked me for them. I told them make it 15 last year, but they didn't. They kept it at 10. Now they went straight to 20.
That's for inflation.
Yeah. Right. Different grains and vegetables. The price You could easily that's with that. Frozen? I haven't moved. Okay, sorry, got disconnected there. Okay. It's based off of whether you do there's this term in Sharia called a saw, which is about it's a weight measure. It's about 3.5 kilos. So some items is one saw, some is half a saw. So based on the value of those things in grocery stores today, that measure, that's where the valuation comes from. There's the dates are the most expensive, so the dates, one saw of dates, that's why it's the highest amount with that. Ask me that in the Q&A, inshallah. Okay, yeah, so the purpose is that those who are in need, they're able to enjoy their Eid, right? So it's better you give it earlier in Ramadan, so you can reach the people by then, right? And it's the same recipients as zakat. Well, we're going to talk about who the recipients are. That's our next and final module. Okay. Ooh, big one. Okay, we're at 3 o'clock. That's okay. The last module won't take long, maybe like 10 minutes. So let's do this one. This is the last one. It's the hardest one. And when I did it, I double, triple checked that I didn't make any mistakes. So hopefully I did it. Maybe someone will catch something I did wrong. Assets that you owe in 6 months, equity investments. Okay, I think my connection's fine. It's a Bitcoin. We said you pay it on Bitcoin. Business trade receivable, services receivable, inheritance you will receive, antique cup collection, long term, overdue parking tickets, value of rental property you own, monthly car finance, capital amount, and average monthly utilities that you pay. Okay. I'm just gonna check what I did in the.
Cancel his driving license.
It may be because of the internet, because previously my internet was shared and it's no longer working out.
Yeah, I switched to my data now. Let's see. No access savings. Okay, yeah, in this one, there's no difference of opinion. No access and savings. Right. Just go through each one by one and see if it's something that would be zakatable. Is it the full amount or a different amount of it? write that down, or see if it's a deductible. Make a note of that, and then just sum those up at the end.
Is there any difference monthly car finance or lease? Lease is different story, finance and.
Yes, that's a good question. Ask me that in the end.
Please. Okay, next.
Good to go? One more time. Are you guys is not trying?
We cannot depend on your, we cannot depend on your laptop now. So receive the cards.
I really hope it's saved the first clip.
This is the important part.
Okay, let's look at the answer quickly. One by one. Zakatable assets, that's the whole thing. Okay, debt owed to your friend, that's the deductible.
Yeah.
Equity investments take 30% of this, 2760. RRSP, no access savings, no zakat. Crypto, pay on the full thing. Business trade receivable, full thing. Service receivable is not zakatable. Inheritance you will receive is not zakatable. Anti-cup collection is not zakatable. Parking tickets, that's the deductible. Value of rental property, it's not applicable. You don't need that information. Monthly car finance, capital amount times 12, and average monthly utility. Remember, you could take out your current month's worth of expenses you have. So that's that. 1 month's worth. Add them up, subtract it. That's what you get. That's 2.5% of that.
The utilities, you don't do that well.
No, just the current month. Utilities just the current month. Because you can't do future expenses. Yes. Overdue expenses from the past, you could. Yeah. That you haven't paid yet. Yeah.
Same with the rent though, right? So that's what I'm getting confused.
No, you can only deduct it if you haven't paid it yet. If you've paid a previous expense, you can't deduct that now. If it's money that you owe at this time, you can deduct it.
Same with the rent, so you haven't paid it.
Yeah, so that month's rent you could deduct. Not the future, no. Because until that month comes, it's not due on you.
Car finance is working for one year.
Car finance is different. That's a debt that you owe. You owe the full payment of the car.
Oh, okay, so you.
It's already owed on you. Yeah. In a business, trades receivables. And receivables here means money that you're owed. Right? Trade is when you sold something and you haven't been paid for it yet. Services receivables where you provided a service and haven't been paid for it. Trades receivable are zakatable. Services receivables are not.
Services you did that survey.
Yeah, and you haven't been paid for it yet. And trade, you sold something, a physical tangible object, and haven't been paid for it yet.
But when you get received payment for your service, you don't pay that cost.
No, when you get paid later, then you don't. No. The next time your zakat date comes, if you have that money, then you pay zakat on it.
Figure out to fix a gate or something. And you will be like $10,000.
Yeah,
And then when I receive that, I'll pay the cost.
no. If you haven't received it by your zakat date, no.
But when I receive it, let's say,
No, if you receive it afterwards, you won't pay zakat at that time either, no.
and if I sold you something, let's say, in cake, now I'll pay the cost.
Yeah. Yeah, if you sold me something, then I will. It's because the payment that I owe you is, in the case when you sold me something, it's an exchange for an object that itself was zakatable,
Okay.
right? As your business merchandise.
Cost me 6,000, but sold it for 10,000. They want 4,000 or 10,000?
Sorry?
So the gate, let's say I sold it for 10,000.
Yeah, whatever I owe you, so 10,000.
So like the gate cost me 6,000, that doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, on the sale price. Right. Okay, discharging zakat. Let's go through this quickly. Intention in zakat. I'm not talking about, have a good, generous intention. Talking about having the intention that this money you're giving is zakat, not something else. That intention must be there when you part with those funds. Okay, it could be when you're giving it to the recipient, you're giving if you put the money aside to give it for zakat later. Maybe in a different account or in a different drawer in your room somewhere, right? You're setting the money aside. At that point, the intention must be for zakat. Why this matters so much is because if you've given someone a loan and they're not paying it back, you can't say, okay, that's my zakat, now you keep it.
No,
You can't do that.
no.
The intention for zakat has to be there when you give it.
But if you threaten that if you will not pay, I will put in my threaten that I pay you, then he will return definitely.
Okay, so that's the intention. Who receives zakat? In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outlines 8 recipients: the poor, the needy. There's different definitions given for poor and needy, fuqara and masakin. Some say they're the same, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned 2 different ones, so there must be a difference in between them. Some say a poor person is someone who doesn't have nisab, and a needy person is someone who doesn't have enough for their day-to-day expenses. Some say vice versa. At the end of the day, practically there isn't much difference, right? It's very rare someone would fall in between the criteria of faqir and miskin. Someone is in need, they're going to be in need. Right? Those employed to administer zakat, this is a very lengthy topic. I'm not going to get into it. I wanted to, but we don't have time for it. This is when there is an Islamic rule and the ruler appoints people to go collect zakat from the citizens. Those people who have been sent to go collect the zakat could be paid with zakat funds. Okay, that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls al-amilina alayha. And the big question is, do organizations today qualify for that? Right? That's what I'm not going to get into. It's a very long discussion. I'll say this much, that most senior scholars around the world say no. They don't. Okay. Many other scholars say yes, they do. The most senior scholar in the world today, maybe in terms of finances, is Mufti Taha Masood in Pakistan. This is someone that all desis and non-desis accept, all the Arabs and everyone accepts that he is the authority in all financial matters in the world right now. He says no. Okay.
So when you pay zakat online or website, whatever it is, so you pay your portion and just give them the fees, whatever.
Yeah, that's the best way to do.
Okay,
Right. If you're paying zakat online, add a bit extra to cover the fees that will be charged, right? Because I mean at the end of the day, the people, the organizations who are doing this, they all follow the view that you could use zakat for that. Okay? Otherwise, they can't really operate. But there's a whole discussion about why they don't qualify. Yeah, not gonna get into it. Okay. Those whose hearts need to be softened towards Islam. This is something that doesn't really apply nowadays. In the time of Umar anhu, he people object against him that he abrogated it. He did naskh. And how can he do naskh after Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's time? He didn't abrogate it. All he said was that Islam has gained enough strength. There's not a need for this right now. Since then until now, for the most part, that has been the case. And this was al-mu'allafatu qulubuhum. This was zakat that was given to new Muslims in some cases who had just accepted Islam, but they were facing a lot of pressure from their families, and they're being cut off from their finances and so on. So zakat would be given to them to help them establish themselves more as Muslims, right? And then some scholars say that it was also given to non-Muslims who are on the verge of accepting Islam to help win their hearts over. It's called al-mu'allafatu qulubum, which means to soften their hearts, right? So nowadays, in most cases, this doesn't apply. If it does apply, then it's not for individuals to choose on their own to give it to someone like that. It has to be administered by the Islamic ruler, or nowadays the organizations that deal with zakat. That's another whole discussion. Do they qualify as an Islamic ruler would in these regards? Again, because of time, I'm not going to go into it. Those in slavery, that doesn't apply today. Those in debt, this is a big one. Someone is in debt, and the extent of their debt, right? When we saw how to do the calculations, right? If after the debt they fall below nisab or they're going in the negative, then they could receive zakat, okay, to help pay off their debt. In the way of Allah, this is someone who is out in Islamic war, okay, an expedition, jihad, something, and while they're there, they don't have access to their wealth back home, so they can receive zakat. Many people misuse this and say that fi sabilillah, in the way of Allah, is anything that serves Islam. So give it to masjids, give it to this, give it to that. We're going to talk about that next, but it's very specific what it was for. A lot of people today are trying to misuse it. So be wary of that. When you give zakat anywhere, make sure you know what they're doing with it. Destitute traveler, this is someone who is traveling again, and for some reason he doesn't have access to his wealth back home. He could receive zakat where he is, just enough to get back home, and then he'll have access to his wealth. Nowadays, this is very uncommon because you could, in most cases, you can access your wealth from anywhere. Yes.
Yeah, in this page, there is an important factor which we are facing everyone. Suppose my family, your family, having a sibling, they are not easily in their daily life.
Well, it's going to come siblings. We're going to talk about it. Yes.
So the zakat is only paid to Muslims, right? Certain number. I mean,
Yes, except for the one opinion that says that everything else has to be Muslims. Yeah, there's no difference on that. Sadaqah is okay. Sadaqah is okay. Charity in general, but zakat only to Muslims. Who can't receive it? Your direct ascendants and descendants. Your parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren. And husband and wife. Okay, they can't receive zakat. Any other relative could. Siblings could, cousins could, aunts, uncles, niece, nephew. As long as you don't have such a relationship with that person that they spend on you. Okay, because you're not allowed to benefit from your zakat wealth in any way. So if you're living with your uncle, for example, and he spends on you, he pays the rent or he buys food, don't give him zakat. Because some of it is gonna come back to you. Right? And the question that the sister asked about tax receipts for zakat. CRA recognizes it as a donation. That's why they qualified for a tax receipt. But what most scholars say is that take it, get the receipt, the money that you get back because of it, donate that again. I mean, that's the best way to go, because you shouldn't benefit from your zakat, but if you can help someone else benefit, then why not? Right? And Sayyids, anyone who is a Sayyid from the family of Prophet ﷺ, they can receive zakat. No, not by last names. You need to ask them. Those who are Sayyids, they should know what type of Sayyid they are, what their lineage is. So there's specific things with which families they have to come from. Al-Abbas, Al-Harith, Ali, Jafar, and Aqil. But generally, someone who is a Sayyid, they will usually be from one of these, so they can't receive zakat.
And the same chapter, if you are paying the her, but don't mention to him, to her, that you are.
Yeah, when you pay zakat,
Otherwise, hurt his feelings.
if you think the person won't be comfortable accepting zakat, but they are in need,
Yeah.
you don't need to tell them that it's zakat. Right?
But
It's,
you
it's,
have to,
your intention must be there.
Yeah,
They don't have to know.
I am giving him from my zakat.
Yeah. Right? As long as you're sure they're eligible.
Yeah.
Right?
Beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, so masjid, Islamic institutes, public projects can't receive zakat. Zakat must go to an individual. Okay, transfer of ownership, this is what we call tamleek. Tamleek is a rukn, a pillar of zakat, just like zakat is a pillar of Islam. Tamleek must be there for the zakat to be complete. It must go into the ownership of an individual, a person, a living person, a living human being. Okay. When you give it to masjids or places, they give it ahead to other people. Right? Or this is what they're supposed to. Okay.
In public places, what do you mean accept from the Islamic institution? The public is library, let's say the public places, many things.
I didn't say public. Oh, you can't give it to public. Right? A library, a well, an orphanage.
Yeah.
You can't give it for their overhead expenses. You could give it to them to use on people who are eligible. Right? All the organizations that collect zakat.
You are giving the charity, you are giving the.
You can't give zakat to open a well, no. Unless the well is going to be owned by people who are eligible for zakat.
Oh, not any institution,
No. Right?
water well or this is like.
No.
Between individual and these, if he wants to open a well, that's.
That's up to him. He can do whatever he wants with it. Yeah. Okay. I'll give you an example. Okay, I'll come back to this, okay? Right here. We take zakat and al-ihsan. Right, so before we leave, give me all your zakat. Okay. We take zakat, we don't use it for any overhead expenses. We use it for the tuition of those students who can't pay their tuition, who are eligible for zakat. Okay, and how that works is they have to sign a contract with us. They make us their proxy, their agent to receive zakat on their behalf. So when someone gives us zakat, it's as though they're giving it to that person and they've authorized us to receive it on their behalf. And we have to allot those zakat funds to those tuition that student owes. We can't use it for rent or to buy food for everyone or for this or that. No. That condition has to be fulfilled, that it's going to an individual, a person. Yeah, that's what we do. I can't say what other people do. I don't know. Okay. Where to discharge your zakat? The initial command that has been given by Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that hadith that someone asked about new Muslims, should we tell them about zakat? In the same hadith, he says that tell us zakat is taken from the rich amongst them and given to the poor amongst them. So zakat, the primary thing should be to give it locally to those in need. Okay. Secondly, to relatives. Relatives sometimes overpowers local. If you have a relative overseas and they're in need, you should give it to them. Okay. And then to other places. Nowadays, there are so many places, so many causes where people are in need, right? If you feel that locally there's not that strong of a need, you can give zakat there by all means, right? There's nothing wrong with it. It's a very good thing, right? You want to help people, like with the earthquakes that happened. A lot of people gave their zakat for Syria and Turkey, right? That's fine. Other countries, you could give zakat for things that happened, natural disasters, calamities, things like that, because those people, for sure, they're eligible. They have nothing. They've lost everything. Yes.
So the zakat has to be in money. Can it be gold?
Zakat could be in any form, basically. For example, some organizations for zakat al-fitr, they don't give money ahead, they give gift cards. Right? Because like in that case, the purpose is that someone benefits, is able to enjoy their Eid, right? So they give them gift cards to make sure they spend that money in the right place. So it'll be a gift card for like Superstore or something. You go buy groceries, you could have some food, right? Not that you give them money and this guy goes and buys an iPhone or something and then.
Let's say you have like, for example, a relative that he's in a moment and then he can buy a house or if you have to like without
If your zakat is that much, then yeah. Yeah. Right. Like many institutes, some that I've studied in overseas, they take zakat, right, and they use that zakat funds to buy food and feed those students who are eligible for zakat. And you can do that. They buy clothing, they buy shelter. You could buy things with the zakat funds as long as it's going to a person who is eligible for zakat. That's fine. Okay. And on that note, when we talk about giving zakat overseas, is Mujahid here? He left. Someone's coming down. Okay, he's here. Okay, so one of the organizations that do some of the most work internationally is Islamic Relief. I'll let him talk about it, but they are our sole and main sponsor for this event. So you can thank him for you guys were able to eat food and everything. And you can come up here to just talk a bit about the work that they do, how they collect and distribute zakat, and so on. Please.
Thank you everyone for giving us space to join a part of Al-Ihsan and Moses workshop. My name is Murad.
Can you come a bit closer? Because they won't be able to hear you.
Oh, yeah. So my name is Murad. I'm the regional fundraising specialist for BC. I work underneath Taha Masood. I'm sure a lot of you might know him. And so yeah, I'm here just to basically say thank you to as a sign of gratitude for your time. And also thank you to the Al-Ihsan Institute for hosting this. We are over 40 plus countries internationally. We have over 100 plus field offices around the world. And we right now currently have all of our efforts going towards the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. We've done work in the past in countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Bangladesh. We're still continuing to work in Palestine. And so, inshallah, everything that we raise this year will be going towards places wherever they sort of need those resources. That's essentially like a very brief rundown. You can also, we have a lot of events coming up in Ramadan, from iftars to different tablings around the city, Vancouver, Richmond. You're also more than welcome to donate online. You're also more than welcome to see us on the street. If we're tabling, you're also more than welcome to donate. Go there, you take your zakat, we take your sadaqah, and we can have you go, like if you specific, like right now we're collecting for Turkey and Syria. If you wanted to go towards a specific country of your choice, you can also let us know that, and we can have the resources allocated to the country if that's where you want the money to go. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair. MashaAllah. They're truly doing very amazing work, locally, internationally. So please do check them out. The website's going to be up, I think, at the end. Okay, last thing, if you haven't paid your zakat at all, or there were certain assets where you didn't think it was zakatable, now you know that it is. You need to go back and make those calculations as best as you could. I know it's hard, some things are many, many years back or something. Whether you've missed certain years or you've missed on a specific type of asset, do your best to go back and calculate. Like I said, always do a bit more, add a bit more as a precaution, and give that, and inshallah that will suffice for your zakat. Okay. In summary, zakat is, you need to figure out what your zakatable assets are. Okay, just go through them one by one, see what they are, how much of each one is zakatable, minus your deductibles, whatever those may be, and 2.5% of the rest. Okay, We do Q&A. Al-Ihsan, anyone know what ihsan means? Excellence, perfection, right? So we are always trying to make our programs and workshops, everything better, to learn from each one that takes place. How can the next one be better? What can we do differently? What did you enjoy? So we know to keep that. What did you not enjoy? Any suggestions you have? So please just take a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, scan the barcode, and if you can leave some feedback for us, it's very helpful. It helps us make sometimes small changes in future events, make things run a lot smoother. Yes.
That I have very quick question. As NGOs, they are collecting every Ramadan or whole year, the zakat or whatever you want to pay. They are not spending your money in all the country at the same year, whatever they collect the zakat in financial year. If the same thing, suppose I have the family, a lot of poor people in my family.
Ask me in the Q&A.
Okay, my family will follow the chapter. And
No.
Okay.
Okay, just a very quick, a little bit about Al-Ihsan for those of you who are new here. It's the first time with us. We are primarily an educational institute. We have a number of different short courses, long-term courses for brothers, for sisters, for children, for adults, across all subjects basically of Sharia. One of our most popular programs is Islam Comprehensive. It's a 2-year diploma program. Many of you sitting here are part of that course already. It's a 2-year diploma that covers 6 different subjects: Quran, Tafsir, Hadith, Fiqh, Sirah, and Foundations. Foundations is basically Aqidah and a few other matters. You have the option to study each course one at a time. Each one is taught over 4 months. If you want to do just one subject, you can do that. You want to do 2, you can do 2. You want to do 3, you can do 3. That's up to you. Or you can do all 6 and do the full diploma program. Right now, we have the Hadith course going on. Next is Arabic. That's going to start in June, inshallah. Enrollments for that are going to open in May. Okay, besides that, we have a lot of other courses too. Just very quickly, Arabic programs, History of Islam, coming soon. It's almost done. Muhsinat is a 4-month course only for sisters that covers all aspects of Sharia that pertain to them. We have Quranic studies for sisters, Tajweed, and some translation, tafsirs. Part-time Islamic school and the spring, summer, winter programs. This is for children. We have classes on the weekdays, on the weekend, like we had today. The children are gone 10 to 2. And then we have programs in the holidays. Like we have the spring program starting Monday for children for 2 weeks. And then in the summer, we have a 6-week one for kids, for children. In the winter, again, we have a 2-week one. So there are some of them. We have many more. You can check out our website. We do community programs almost every month for different demographics. Some only for brothers, some for sisters, some for the whole family, some for children. We've done ones for like moms and toddlers, moms and babies, different things. They're always going on. If you don't follow us on Facebook, make sure you do. Everything is posted there. Join our mailing list. Well, you're already going to be added into our mailing list for this program. But if someone is here who did not register, you can give your email at the sign-in table, or you can just go to our website. You can join the mailing list from there. Usually we announce things by email before we post them in different places. So sometimes some programs fill up very, very fast, especially these community programs. So we always send that out by email first. So if you're on the email list, you will know before a lot of other people do. Ihsan Intensive, this is our department of short-term intensive courses, weekend courses. This workshop is one of those, right? We do different ones over, sometimes over 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. We're expanding this a lot, especially this year. We have some going on in many different provinces across Canada, different masajid in Lower Mainland. We have one tomorrow from here. I'm leaving with some of our other scholars to Kelowna. We're doing a program there tomorrow. That's part of the Ihsan Intensive. Next week we have one in Guildford. That's part of Ihsan Intensive. And there's a lot going on. I think I have, this is not a course. It's a seminar we're having next Sunday, inshallah, in preparation for Ramadan. And this is, I think, the first time I've been in BC for now 12, 13 years. Maybe it happened before then, but the first time this many masajid and organizations got together to do one event. And so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, plus us 10 different ones that got together that are holding this. Inshallah, it will take place at SFU. We're just in the final stages of finalizing that. And we have many scholars that will be speaking. It's a short program, 3 hours, inshallah, next Sunday evening. Please do register. Seating is limited. We're looking at an audience of about 300 or 400 people. We hope to see you all there. This is the one that's in Kelowna tomorrow. We did have, I only put this in because we had a number of students who registered for this workshop who are in Kelowna. So we hope to see you there if you haven't already registered. That is taking place tomorrow in the Kelowna Islamic Center. That is it for our workshop. No Q&A. You can all go home. That's it for our workshop. We'll have Q&A now. If someone needs to leave, you can leave. Those who want to stay back, we'll have Q&A. Inshallah, we'll try to get to everyone's questions.
One question for everyone.
Okay.
As I asked you, if the NGOs are collecting your zakat and they are spending.
Yeah, okay, so about when to disperse zakat. Zakat should be dispersed within the lunar year, within 1 year.
If I want to keep, suppose personally, I want to keep this year zakat, portion of zakat, for the next year, I need that, those needy people need that year. May I retain that value, that?
No, your zakat should be dispersed within the same year.
As soon as possible?
Yes, as soon as possible, it should be. Next year, in your next zakat, you do it again then. Yes.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
So if they're dispersing their assets, zakat really won't apply to it because they're basically giving away their money, everything, right? So it's all about the zakat date. If on that date they have dispersed it already, then they won't pay zakat. If they haven't yet, but they plan to, then they still have the funds, they will pay zakat on it. Well, are you talking about that someone who hasn't paid zakat and now they're distributing their stuff? So the would-be inheritors, it's better that they pay it on their behalf, but they don't have to. It's not obligatory on them. It's better that they do for the sake of their. If the person is alive, then they should pay it themselves, whatever they're missing, whatever they own, before they distribute everything. No interest. Just that amount.
Food is there for sale.
Yes, we have some extra food left over. If anyone would like to make a donation of $10 per box and take that, please let the brothers know. You can pay by credit card or cash, and you can take some food back with you, inshallah.
I don't think it's this correct.
Look at it in a second. Let's take questions.
have a question. There's a debate, for example. For instance, there's good context about this aspect, but there's also the common the end of the take it completely funding themselves to perform. So in that case, can I think that
You said he's above the sum or below?
about this?
And he wants to go, no, you can't give him zakat so he can go to Umrah.
Okay, but he's able to fund himself, but he's not completely able to fund himself.
No, you can't because that would be like Umrah is not an obligation that he has to do. So it's not something that it's not for his like living expenses or something that dire, so he can't take zakat for that.
And like, taking on that, people up in the next, next one, and for 2021, I need to pay my zakat, I will have that separate. And so I can accumulate the zakat in 2020, because they can do the amount and then give it to someone's.
No, that's not good. The zakat should be paid every year. Yeah, and if you need some time to disperse it, then you can do it within the lunar year.
You are known very delayed.
Exactly. You can do it within the next year, within the next lunar year, but it shouldn't go beyond that. Within that 1 year, all those zakat should be dispersed.
It's a personal thing.
Yeah.
In 2020, I invested, for example, say $10,000, and I didn't know about the tax, and I had to pay the tax of $10,000. I own, I just wanted to buy, for example. And at that time, I didn't pay the tax like $10,000. Now it's the one of tax, and I wanted to activate. $10,000 at that time, and then pay the zakat for that, or should I take the value of that? Pay the zakat?
No, you look at what it was worth at that time.
That's like 80% down right now, right?
It doesn't matter.
It was
Because whatever it was worth that time, that's what was owed on you.
Okay, so that, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the barakah is. That's one unfortunate.
Right? Jazakallah khair. Good. Any other questions? We're good. Okay. Jazakallah khair, everyone. It was very nice having you all. We hope to see you again in the future programs. And inshallah, we'll be sending the recording and the slides, everything out within the next couple of days, inshallah, by Monday, most likely. All right. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The thing is like, I used to give zakat to one of